Chapter 303. Entering Gu village. Xiao Qingyuan glanced at them. Yes, they were all wearing new clothes, and their hair was glossy. It was just that the smile on their faces was really too flattering. It's not too late. As he spoke, he turned to look at Gu Yundong. What do you think about letting them inquire? Gu Yundong was still a little surprised. Why are they here? These 4 people were the beggars who had previously helped them lie in the prefectural city. I don't think I know anyone here. We need someone to help us look for Uncle Gu. These people are quite reliable, so I might as well let them come together. It was only after Gu Yundong left Yongfu village that Xiao Qingyuan suddenly realized that he needed to nurture reliable people. Otherwise, the next time she went somewhere else, he might still not be able to follow her. Although he had met these 4 people in the prefectural city of Yongning Prefecture, they were not bad. Back then, they had promised Gu Yundong to find trouble with Yu Yue. Later, they had been caught by him, but no matter how hard he tried to interrogate them, they never gave Gu Yundong away. They even knew how to divert attention and simply told the authorities about the Gao brothers. The 4 of them were not very old, about 12 or 13 years old. They were all very thin. One of them was the tallest. He looked like their boss, called Ah Mao. Yes, the 4 of them were called Ah Mao, Ah Shu, Ah Go, and Ah Zhu. When Gu Yundong heard the names for the first time, she felt thunderstruck. Did they gather all the animals in the house? Maybe they should look for other animals if they had brothers. Ah Mao smiled and patted his chest at Gu Yundong. Don't worry, Mississippi. I promise we'll find out anything you want to know. Although we're all in the prefectural city, Ah Shu used to live in Jiangyu County. He's very familiar with this place. Ah Shu immediately nodded. Gu Yundong looked at Xiao Qingyuan and agreed after some thought. Do you know about the Gu village? I know. Ah Shu said, I have a distant relative who married into the Gu village. Most of the people in that village have the surname Gu. The head of the Gu clan is not a good person. Oh, that was exactly what Gu Yundong was thinking. Wasn't that Gu family's patriarch a piece of trash? Alright, then help me find out more about the Gu Chuanzong family. Gu Yundong told them the details. The few of them immediately nodded and expressed that they wanted to set off without even drinking water. It was still early, and Gu village was not far from here. It was not too late to ask around. In the end, it was Ah Mao who brought Ah Shu there. The 2 of them could take care of each other. Xiao Qingyuan sent them out and gave them a few taels of silver. He said, other than asking about the Gu Chuanzong family, ask about the Gu family's patriarch too. He had once heard Gu Yunshu talk about what the Gu family's patriarch had done to Gu Dajiang. If not for him, Gu Dajiang's family would have been independent long ago, and Gu Yundong would not have suffered for so many years. Ah Mao agreed and left with the money with a smile. The 2 of them were dressed cleanly and neatly. They drove the mule cart away. Fortunately, they were already familiar with driving. Otherwise, it would have wasted too much time. When the mule cart arrived at Gu village, someone saw it immediately. Ah Shu asked him about the location of his distant relative. This relative was the daughter of his aunt's family and could be considered his cousin. She was not very close to him and was even a little cold. Back then, when something happened to Ah Shu's family, he went to look for her aunt and asked her to lend some money. At that time, it was this cousin who came out and arrogantly said that her family did not have money, humiliating him fiercely. Ah Shu felt that although he had yet to make a name for himself, he could still use his clothes to intimidate others. Unexpectedly, as soon as the mule cart entered the village, it almost bumped into someone. Chapter 304. A child like a scared bird. Ah Mao cursed the mule and jumped out of the cart. The person who fell to the ground was a child. He didn't look very old and was carrying a bundle of firewood on his back. It was a little heavy. At this moment, he fell to the ground with the firewood. Actually, the mule cart did not hit him, but he was frightened. Coupled with the firewood, he fell to the ground and could not get up for a long time. Cat T frowned and lifted him up. Are you okay? The child shook his head. Seeing that he was frowning unhappily, he quickly hid his hand that had been scratched by the stone. It's okay. I wasn't paying attention. I'm sorry. Don't hit me. I'll be very careful when I walk next time, really. Mao was dumbfounded. Was he that scary? Alright. I'm not going to hit you. Be careful when you walk. Of course, he had also seen the kid's hidden hand. Having been on the streets for a long time, he still had this bit of discernment. However, this child was like a frightened bird, looking like he wanted to leave quickly. He could only pretend not to see it and let him leave. The child struggled to carry the firewood on his back and did not dare to look back. He staggered in his tattered shoes as if he would fall at any moment. Shu also got out of the cart. He looked at the child and said, "That child is carrying such heavy firewood on his back. What are his family members thinking? Maybe his family is poor, or his family doesn't treat him well." Mao shook his head. Let's go. He was a beggar. Even his meals were not guaranteed. How could he have extra sympathy for others? There were not many people in Gu village now. Shu asked about his cousin's husband along the way. When she saw Shu, the cousin was stunned. However, she was quickly attracted by his clothes and the mule cart. Seeing that Shu looked rich, she immediately smiled and invited him in. I haven't seen you in a long time. Where have you been? Are you rich now? Shu raised his chin slightly. I went to the prefectural city and didn't achieve anything. I just came back and planned to find a place to settle down. You know that my village doesn't get along with me. I heard that Gu village is not bad, so I came over to ask. That's right. There are no good people in your village. When your family was in trouble back then, they all hit you when you were down. It's better if you don't go. Our Gu village is not bad. If you want to settle down here, I am here too. I can take care of you. You're young. When you need to get married later, my cousin can help you find a good girl. How could this good-for-nothing afford a mule cart, wear good clothes, walk with the wind, and speak with confidence? Back then, Shu was not like this at all. Shu nodded. Then do we have to look for the chief of Gu village? Where is his house? Will he agree to let me settle down? Yes, why not? He'll be very happy. Because of this disaster, Gu village had lost many people, and there were only few in the neighboring village. Now, the two villages had become one. Actually, there were many outsiders in Gu village, and now, the Gu family took up at most half of the village. Shu let his cousin lead the way. He and Mao went straight to the chief's house. After Shu went in, Mao said impatiently, "I'm going out for a walk. It's stuffy here." Alright, go ahead. After Mao left, he wandered around the village for a while and found out about Gu Chuanzong's house. He stood at the entrance of the courtyard and glanced inside, but he did not expect to meet the eyes of the child who had almost bumped into him just now. Chapter 305, Old Gus Sigh. The child was stunned when he saw him. Terror flashed across his face as he hurriedly ran out. I really didn't mean to bump your carriage. I'm sorry. Don't be angry. Mao was stunned for a moment. He quickly pulled him behind a haystack and asked him with a frown, "Are you from Gu Chuanzong's family?" The child's face turned pale. Don't tell my grandpa. I can apologize. Wait, I'm not here to settle scores with you. Don't be nervous, don't be afraid. A bad feeling flashed across Mao's heart. You call Gu Yundong grandpa. You're his grandson. What's your name? The kid took a step back and shook his head, refusing to say. Mao wanted to ask something, but a sharp voice suddenly came from the courtyard. Bien tu, where did you go? Didn't I ask you to wash your clothes? Where are you? Bien tu. Bien, the guess in Mao's heart was 70 to 80% confirmed, but the child took the opportunity when he was not paying attention to run away. Second aunt, I'll go wash the clothes right away. Right away. Why are you so useless? You're eating and drinking for free in our house. You don't even know how to do some work. I told you to wash them 2 hours ago. You're lazy, right? You're not allowed to eat tonight, do you hear me? The child lowered his head slightly and rubbed his small hands together. However, the woman sneered and pulled his arm fiercely. What are you doing? You deliberately showed it to me. Do you want to say that your hand is injured? The child looked up and shook his head quickly. Then why are you crying? Smile for me. The child hurriedly opened his mouth and squeezed out a smile. His small hands were behind his back, and he even chuckled twice to show that he was smiling. The woman was disgusted. Your smile is so ugly. Hurry up and get to work. You still have to feed the pigs after washing the clothes, little bastard. After saying that, she pinched him hard again. The child staggered and wanted to cry, but when he thought of the woman's words, he did not dare to. He turned around and obediently went to carry the basket of clothes. The basket was not big, but there were many clothes inside, including women's clothes. The child wanted to put it on the ground and pull it, but he was afraid that it would break the basket, so he could only take out half of the clothes and wash the rest later. Mao clenched his fists tightly. He wanted to rush to the Gu family and beat that damn woman to death. What about Gu Yundong? Wasn't that child his grandson? Didn't he know that his grandson was being bullied? Of course, Gu Yundong knew. He was in the room at this moment. As he helped Madame Zhao pick up the beans, he sighed. Madame Zhao snorted. Why? Do you feel sorry for her? If you do, tell your second daughter-in-law not to scold her. Sigh. Dr. Gu sighed again. Forget it. It's his bad luck. He has no parents. Even his sister is gone, and his brother-in-law's family doesn't want him. Since we're raising him, we can't let him do nothing. I know that this second daughter-in-law is angry. Her Sienna has been sold, and we don't know where she is now. In the end, our family is raising an outsider now. She definitely won't be happy. He won't lose anything even if she scolds him. That's right. Isn't there a saying about people who live under someone else's roof? It's already good enough that we're providing for him. As long as second daughter-in-law doesn't make a fuss, making the entire family unable to live in peace, it's fine even if Bien Tu gets scolded. Old Gu nodded, shook his head, and continued to pick up the beans. Mao, who was outside, followed the child to the river. He wanted to tell him to stop washing. Chapter 306, Waiting for your sister. However, the child was terrified the moment he saw him. He trembled and almost fell into the river. Mao could only stop and say to him, "Don't worry, your sister will take you away soon." With that, he turned around and left. He had to quickly help Miss Gu find out what had happened and return to Jiangyu County. Miss Gu and Brother Xiao were both capable people. They would definitely be able to take this child away. Bien Yung was startled. When he heard the word sister, he thought of Bien Mulan. He remembered that she was still worried about him before she died and told him to live well and reunite with his parents. However, when would he be able to find his parents? He was too tired and had to do many things every day. Second aunt hit him and his cousins also pinched him. He did not have dinner tonight. Oh, that's not right. He didn't seem to have eaten lunch either. He was so hungry now. Bien Yunji blinked his eyes, cupped his hands and drank 2 mouthfuls of river water. After feeling that his stomach was no longer empty and uncomfortable, he squatted down and started to wash his clothes. On the other side, Mao had already quickly walked downstream. There were also a few women washing clothes there. He purposely pointed at Bien Yunji and asked a few questions. These people loved to gossip. There were some things that Cat learned clearly without even asking. When he had heard enough, he hurried over to check on Bien Yunji. He happened to see the child holding his stomach and looking at the river with a conflicted expression. After a while, the child squatted down and took 2 sips. When he felt a little better, he smiled. Mao recalled that when he was a beggar, he also had nothing to eat and could only drink some water to fill his stomach. That feeling was too uncomfortable. However, at least he did not have to work. If he was too hungry, he would lie in the dilapidated temple to conserve his strength. Seeing that the child had drunk 2 more mouthfuls of river water, he quickly reached out to search his body. He finally found half a steamed bun. He had bought it on the way here. He was used to being a beggar, so he couldn't bear to throw it away even if he had not finished it. He quickly handed the steamed bun to Bien Yunji, who was stunned for a second and almost fell into the water again. Mao quickly supported him and pulled him to sit on a rock at the side. Eat here. After stuffing the steamed bun into Bien Yunji's hands, Mao went to wash his clothes. Bien Yunji was startled. He wanted to stop him, but when he saw the steamed bun in his hand, he couldn't help but gulp. He looked at Cat again, then at the steamed bun. After a few times, he finally lowered his head and took a bite. After he finished eating, Mao finished washing most of the clothes. He rubbed the dirty parts and soaked the lingeries in the water. Anyway, it was impossible to tell if he had washed them or not. Let's go, I'll send you back. Don't worry, I'll just walk to the door. I won't go in. Mao smiled at him. His smile was very funny, and Bien Yunji lowered his guard. After sending him to the Gu family's door, Mao left. When he returned to the village chief's house, he happened to see Shu walking out with a gloomy expression. He scolded the village chief loudly, "Damn it, I only want to settle down and you charge me so much money. Why don't you rob me? It's not like I only have a place like your Gu village to choose from. Do you really think this place is in high demand? Some old fart is already so old, yet he's still so greedy. I won't settle down here." After saying that, he ignored the cries behind him. When he saw Mao come over, he gave him a look and the 2 of them left. Shu sat on the mule cart and said excitedly, "You don't know, but this Chief Gu is really a talent. Do you know what he did?" Chapter 307, Took a Concubine. Shu tried to keep him in suspense, but after a long time, Mao didn't say anything. He couldn't help but turn around. Only then did he realize that Mao's expression was dark. No one knew what he was thinking. As they knew each other well, Shu quickly guessed something. He nudged him and asked softly, "What's wrong? Didn't you go to inquire about the Gu family? It didn't go well. Let's talk about it when we get back." Mao shook his head and shook the reins violently. The mule cart immediately sped up. The 2 of them entered Jiangyu County before the city gate closed. When they went to the inn where Gu Yundong was, they saw that she and Xiao Qingyuan were still waiting. The few of them were talking in Xiao Qingyuan's room. Madame Yang was also there, but she was sitting alone in the corner, completing a puzzle. Just now, Go watched her interestedly and asked her a few questions, making Madame Yang extremely happy. She taught him how to solve puzzles like she was teaching a child. Shu was the first to speak. I pretended to go to Gu village to settle down and went to Chief Gu's house. Good lord, that old man is black-hearted. He actually said that it's not easy to settle down with so many people in Gu village. He asked me for 10 taels of silver to smooth things over. Later on, he said that an acre of homestead costs 10 taels of silver, and so does the wasteland. Does he think I'm stupid? The entire Yongning prefecture is short of people now. He should be paying me money for me to settle down. He's so shameless. Speaking of this, he was still a little angry. Although he had pretended to be dissatisfied and left in the end, when he really chatted with that Gu person, his dissatisfaction had reached its peak. This shameless thing. By the way, that old man also escaped and has just returned. Although he suffered a little this time, he's in good spirits. Shu calmed down and became mysterious again. He said with a hint of gossip, this old man is old but still strong. He actually brought a woman back and took that woman as his concubine. Pfft. Cough, cough. Gu Yundong choked on his tea. Xiao Qingyuan quickly patted her back. Kat and the others looked at their actions and lowered their heads in tacit understanding. Gu Yundong wiped his mouth and asked in disbelief, Concubine. Gu Gang is 50 years old, right? He was already 50 years old. Many people who were 32 or 33 years old could already be grandfathers now. He could be a great-grandfather at 50 years old. He's exactly 50 this year. Shu said, that woman is only 19 years old. I heard that she lost her parents on the way to escape. She almost died alone by the roadside. At that time, it was Gu Gang's 16-year-old eldest grandson who took a fancy to her and brought her along. In the end, Gu Gang intercepted her. However, he promised to find a better one for his eldest grandson, so his grandson didn't make a fuss. On the other hand, his wife is cursing at home every day. Gu Yundong was full of admiration for Gu Gang. She knew that this person was a selfish person who would seek revenge for the smallest grievance. She did not expect him to be so shameless. As Shu spoke, he shook his head. But I don't think that concubine likes Gu Gang at all. There's even a hint of disgust in her eyes. But she's also a scheming person. When I was in the Gu family, she caused trouble for Gu Gang twice. The Gu family couldn't tell. If not for the fact that he was knowledgeable and had met many two-faced fellows on the streets, coupled with the fact that he was an outsider, he would not have been able to tell. Gu Yundong knew that a 19-year-old young lady would not be interested in a 50-year-old man. What did she want from him? He had no money, no face, and no good temper. He was just a useless old thing. She looked at Mao. What about the Gu family? Chapter 308, remembered by the county magistrate. Mao pursed his lips and looked at her hesitantly. After a while, he said, I saw Bian Yuanji. He is having a hard time. Gu Yundong took a sip of water. Tell me. I'm mentally prepared. She knew very well what the Gu family was like. Mao told her everything about Bian Yuanji whom he had met when he entered the village and what the two of them had said. He told her about the kid's fear and his jobs in the Gu family. Gu Yundong was not the only one who was livid. Shu, Go, and Zhu were equally indignant. Although they had lived a hard life and were used to seeing the fickleness of human nature, that was because they had no relatives or friends. When their parents and grandparents were still alive, even if they did not treat them well, they would not be so mean. Moreover, they still had brothers to take care of each other now. Gu Yundong exhaled softly and tightened her grip on the cup. Zhu stood up. Why don't we just sneak into Gu village and steal him? That's right. The Gu family doesn't care about him anyway. That kid's been through a lot there. These people are no good. Only Ah Mao sat there and didn't speak. Xiao Qingyuan glanced at him and asked, why did the Gu family take him in back then? As soon as he said this, everyone was stunned. That's right. Since the Gu family disliked this child so much, why did they accept him after Ding Jincheng gave him to them? Bien Mulan was entrusted to the Ding family. Ah Mao then said, the Gu family really didn't want to take him in. At that time, it was Ding Jincheng's parents who abandoned the child at the entrance of the Gu family. Old Gu didn't even look at him. It was so cold at that time. Bien Yuanji froze at the door for the entire night. Someone in the Gu village couldn't stand it anymore and brought him home to drink hot water. However, it was impossible for them to take in the child. At that time, it was difficult for anyone. Fortunately, the newly appointed county magistrate of Jiangyu County happened to travel incognito and went to various villages to learn about the people's livelihood. The county magistrate bumped into Bien Yuanji, whose face had turned red from the cold. He thought that Gu village was too difficult, so he asked a few more questions and finally understood the situation. The county magistrate got angry at that moment. Many people died in Yongning Prefecture because of the famine. This was really a time to develop manpower. The new emperor encouraged widows to remarry and have more children. It was not easy for Gu village to have a child who survived the disaster. He had blood family, and was close to his maternal grandfather's family, but they refused to take him in and watched him freeze to death. He called the Gu family and the Ding family over. After repeated questioning and weighing, he finally asked the Gu family to take in this child. Therefore, Bien Yuanji was remembered by the county magistrate. If he suddenly disappeared, both the Gu family and the other people in the Gu village would be worried about being punished by the county magistrate. Who knew how big the matter would be? Moreover, Bien Yuanzi's household registration had already fallen into the Gu family. If he was taken away just like that, he would become an unregistered person and it would be very troublesome in the future. If they wanted to bring him out, they had to start from other sources. When Ah Shu and the others heard this, they were a little dejected. Was it so difficult? Why don't we give some money to those people from the Gu family? Ah Mao slapped him. What bad idea did you come up with? It's obvious that that family is greedy. They might not even give him to you even if you offer the money. Then what do we do? Xiao Qingyuan looked at Gu Yundong, who had been silent. Do you have an idea? Chapter 309, Just get him back righteously. Gu Yundong was indeed thinking. We can't steal him. We can't use money. Then we might as well get him back fair and square. Ah Mao and the other three's eyes lit up. How? Get someone to ask the Gu family for him. Who? Gu Yundong smiled. Ding Jincheng. The few of them looked at each other, and their eyes suddenly lit up. Yes, the Ding family didn't want the child back then. What if the Ding family took the child back? The Gu family was afraid that the county magistrate would punish them, but the child would be raised by the Ding family. When the county magistrate remembered and asked them, they would be able to explain. It's just that Ding Jincheng might not agree, right? Xiao Qingyuan clenched his fists. Just beat him up. Ah Mao and the other three shuddered in unison. When they thought of how Xiao Qingyuan had interrogated them back then, they immediately felt that this was nothing. Ding Jincheng would definitely agree. It's late today. Well, look for him at the Ding residence tomorrow. Gu Yundong stood up. All right, rest. The four of them left the room one after another and returned to their rooms. Gu Yundong saw that Madame Yang had finished piecing together the puzzle and was just sitting there alone, thinking about something. She immediately walked over and asked softly, Mother, what's wrong? Yung. I'm a little familiar with this name. However, she couldn't remember him even after thinking for a long time. Gu Yundong smiled and put the things away for her before leading her away. As they walked, she asked, "Mother, do you still remember eldest aunt Feng?" Older Aunt Gus's original name was Gu Dafeng, very similar to Gu Dajiang and Gu Da's names. It could be seen how randomly old Gu gave them names back then. Yes, Yuanji is the youngest son of eldest aunt. Madame Yang's eyes widened. I remember. Actually, she had also heard Yuanji's space name yesterday, but her attention had been on Gu Dajiang and she hadn't thought about it carefully. Gu Yundong brought her back to her room, but she could not fall asleep on the bed. In the middle of the night, she suddenly heard a soft knock on the door. She looked at Madame Yang and sat up. When she opened the door, she saw Xiao Qingyuan standing outside. "I'll go to Gu village tomorrow morning," Xiao Qingyuan said. Gu Yundong looked down and suddenly smiled. "You've thought of that too. Okay." Xiao Qingyuan's heart suddenly raced when he saw her like this. How could he be so smart? He already knew what he was going to do before she even said anything. Was this feeling like what others said, that their hearts were connected? Actually, ever since the two of them met again in Yongning Prefecture, even though they didn't say anything in detail, their way of interacting had changed slightly. Xiao Qingyuan could feel the change in her attitude, and this change made his eyes burn more and more. "Do you have any money on you?" Gu Yundong asked, as if she was about to give him banknotes. "If that woman is not easy to deal with, then forget it. I don't care about her." "I know. I have enough money. Don't worry. He would take care of it." After all, not only did he have to ask old Gu for Bian Yuanji, but he also had to teach Gu Gang a lesson. After saying that, the two of them went to sleep respectively. The next morning, Xiao Qingyuan left the inn. When Kat and the others arrived, only Gu Yundong was accompanying Madame Yang for breakfast. The four of them quickly finished their porridge and said to Gu Yundong, "Miss, the four of us will accompany you." "No need." Gu Yundong peeled an orange for Madame Yang, wiped her hands and said, "Dog, pig, accompany me. You two went to the Gu village yesterday. Rest in the inn today and help me take care of my mother." The four of them immediately agreed. Gu Yundong packed her things and left the inn. However, she did not expect to see Ding Jincheng not long after she left the house. Chapter 310:1 Won't break your leg alright. There was no need to go to his village to look for him now. Gu Yundong led Go and Ding Jincheng towards Ding Jincheng. Ding Jincheng had listened to Madame Hu and came to apologize to Miss Jiang. For this, he had brought an extra 100 copper coins. When he passed by the pastry shop, he would buy her some sweets. Madame Hu originally wanted to follow them, but unfortunately, she had a stomachache when she woke up in the morning and didn't even leave the house. However, at this moment, Ding Jincheng was a little hesitant. Miss Jiang was indeed not bad. She was good-looking and from the county city. Although her family was not very rich, she was still much better than the woman Aunt Chow had set him up with. However, he still missed Bien Mulan. After all, they had been husband and wife for 4 years, and Mulan was an understanding, gentle, and virtuous person. Although she had never given birth to a child for him, she was really good to him. When he saw Miss Jiang, he couldn't help but compare the two of them. After comparing them, he felt that this Miss Jiang was from the county after all. She gave off a superior feeling, making him feel uncomfortable. Therefore, although Ding Jincheng had arrived at the county city, he had been loitering on the street not far from the Jiang family's entrance for a long time. When Gu Yundong stood in front of him, he suddenly came back to his senses. He didn't know if it was because of guilt or something else, but he turned around and left. However, he had only taken 2 steps when he was forced back by Go. Ding Jincheng took a few steps back and stood in front of Gu Yundong. He was clearly a head taller than her, but his shoulders were hunched as if he had been abused. One don't want to remarry. I just came here for a walk. His explanation was a little revealing. Gu Yundong frowned. Who cares if you remarry or not? If anyone had to care, it would be her uncle and aunt. She looked at Ding Jincheng and said impatiently, I have something to discuss with you. What? Ding Jincheng was stunned. Gu Yundong said, go to old Gus' house and bring Yuanji out. Bring Bian Yuanji out. Ding Jincheng said awkwardly, I'm afraid that won't do. He's the Gu family's grandson to begin with, so he should be raised by the Gu family. I'm not related to him now, so it won't be right for me to ask for him. Gu Yundong sneered. The Gu family is raising him. Don't tell me you don't know what kind of life he's living in the Gu family. Ding Jincheng lowered his head. But that's also the Gu family's fault. Gu Yundong gave him a hard kick. Are you going or not? If not, it'll break your legs. Was he a man? Why did her cousin marry such a person in the first place? Zhu snorted at the side. Hey, why are you so stupid? She's only asking you to bring him out and move his household register out. She didn't ask you to raise him. Ding Jincheng suddenly realized that she would definitely raise Bian Yuanji herself. Judging from Gu Yundong's current state, she probably did not want to return to the Gu family or have anything to do with them. Moreover, that man was dressed so elegantly that day. With such a rich man, it would definitely not be difficult for her to raise Bian Yuanji. Except, what if the Gu family found out that he had lied to them and came back to settle scores with him? Gu Yundong said, Ding Jincheng, you promised my cousin to take good care of Yuanji. Not only did you fail, you even pushed him into the fire pit. Aren't you afraid that my cousin will come to settle scores with you in the middle of the night? Ding Jincheng shuddered. I'll go. That's more like it. Let's go. Gu Yundong turned around and left. Ding Jincheng hurriedly followed after her. As soon as the two of them left, a figure happened to turn around not far away. She narrowed her eyes as she watched Ding Jincheng walk further and further away. Chapter 311. Having a lover. Gu Yundong walked so fast that Ding Jincheng had to take large strides to catch up with her. Are we going now? How long do you want to wait? It's still early. I have a carriage over there. It will take less than an hour to get to Gu village. It's not even lunchtime yet. But I'm not ready yet. Gu Yundong suddenly stopped and turned to look at him. What else do you need to prepare? By the time you're done, Yuanji will be half dead. Ding Jincheng immediately didn't dare to make a sound. B0x. Calm. Gu Yundong narrowed her eyes. Don't tell me you're trying to stall for time and take the opportunity to escape. No. You know where my home is. I can't escape. I'm glad you know. Gu Yundong continued to walk forward. When she reached the carriage, she immediately chased him up. Ding Jincheng had never sat in such a good carriage before. For some reason, he was actually a little happy. He did not dare to move and sat down obediently. However, he was a little puzzled. This girl from the Gu family seemed to be different from before. But it made sense. After marrying a rich man, she would have confidence and there would be someone to back her up. Dog drove the carriage. However, just as they left the city gate, an ox cart brushed past them and entered the county. The person who came was Madame Hu. She was still worried that her son would say something he shouldn't and anger the girl away. Hence, as soon as she felt slightly better, she immediately got on the ox cart of her fellow villagers and rushed over. Madame Hu alighted from the ox cart and went straight to the Jiang family. Unexpectedly, as soon as she reached the entrance of the Jiang family, she bumped into Miss Jiang, and there was no sign of her son beside her. Madame Hu thought to herself, oh no, did he mess it up? Just as she was thinking about it, Miss Jiang also saw her. Madame Hu quickly squeezed out a smile and went up to her. Miss Jiang, what a coincidence. Did you see our Jinqing? He said that he wanted to apologize to you early in the morning. He even said that he wanted to queue up to buy pastries for you. Before she could finish speaking, she was interrupted by Miss Jiang. Auntie, don't joke around. No wonder he doesn't like anyone. He already has a lover. The girl is young and beautiful. Your Ding Jincheng is quite lucky. After saying that, she snorted and turned to enter the door, closing it with a bang. Madame Hu wanted to step forward, but she was almost hit in the nose and could only take 2 steps back. Jincheng had a lover. Who was it? Why didn't this kid tell her earlier that he had a lover? She was young and beautiful. What? How could his mother not let him marry her? Madame Hu muttered in frustration. No, she had to go back. When that kid returned, she would ask him what was going on. Madame Hu walked back to Shangbei village in the ox cart. When they were about to reach Gu village, they saw a carriage parked there from afar. She did not dare to look too long. Those who had carriages were all rich people. Who knew what kind of person with a temper was sitting inside? Madame Hu got off the ox cart. Unexpectedly, as soon as she entered Shangbei village, she saw a person from the same village say, Auntie, why did your Jinqing go to Gu village? What's so strange about going to Gu village? Madame Hu didn't mind. My Jinqing is kind-hearted. He goes to visit Mulan's younger brother from time to time. He'll be back soon. Madame Hu was right about this. Ding Jincheng would go to the Gu village once a month. It was unknown if it was because of his conscience or for his reputation, but every time he went to Madame Hu, he was not allowed to carry gifts. Chapter 312. I'll raise him because of this. Every time Ding Jincheng visited him, Yuan Ji would not eat that night. Madame Zhao said that Ding Jincheng had brought him food, so he must have hidden it, although she never found anything. However, this made them even angrier. Sometimes, they didn't even give him breakfast the next day. Madame Hu felt that it was fine if Jincheng just went to see the child. This time, she didn't think much of it either, but as soon as she entered the house, what Miss Jiang had said suddenly flashed through her mind. She was young and beautiful, but Jincheng didn't tell his mother about her. B0X. Oh no, wasn't there one in Gu village? That was Gu Gang's new concubine. Madame Hu scolded the vixen fiercely. No wonder Jincheng always ran to the Gu village. Did he hook up with a married woman? Damn it, why did he fall for that woman? Madame Hu couldn't stay any longer. No, she had to quickly bring Ding Jincheng back. He couldn't be ruined by that woman. Thinking of this, she got up and left quickly. At this moment, Ding Jincheng had already arrived at the entrance of old Gus' house. Bian Yuanji was the first to see him, and his face instantly turned pale. He knew that he would not have dinner every time his ex-brother-in-law came. He had clearly told this guy several times not to come again. This guy had also agreed last time. Why did he still come? Bian Yuanji was in despair as he heard his second aunt's mocking voice. Hey, isn't this Yuanzi's brother-in-law? What's wrong? You're here to see Yuanji again. Since you care so much about Yuanji, why don't you take him away and raise him yourself? Ding Jincheng swallowed his saliva. He had put down the carriage a kilometer away from the Gu village and came alone. Gu Yundong and the rest were still in the carriage. Hearing Gu Da's wife's mocking voice, he immediately agreed with her. All right, I'll take him away. Our family will raise him in the future. Madame Jia was stunned. The other Gu family members who came out were also stunned. Are you serious? Ding Jincheng secretly heaved a sigh of relief. Of course it's true. Look at how badly you've tortured him. I really can't stand it anymore. I'll take him away today. From now on, he's a member of my Ding family. I promised his sister to take good care of him. Bien Yuanji was a bit surprised when he heard that, but now he became numb. Actually, there was no difference whether it was in the Gu family or the Ding family. He stood silently in the corner, as if everything had nothing to do with him. However, Ding Jincheng looked at him. Yuanji, are you willing to come with me? He thought that Bien Yuanji was willing to do so. After all, he often came to visit him and old Gu would beat and scold him. At least he would comfort and encourage him. He might be the only person who treated this kid well. Bien Yuanji raised his head and glanced at him indifferently. This was his brother-in-law. When his sister was still alive, he had treated him quite well. It was not until they were separated from their parents when they fled that the Ding family despised the siblings for being a burden. He had heard Madame Hu say with his own ears that his sister was a hen who couldn't lay eggs. It was fine if she couldn't carry the Ding family's children, but she even had to bring a burden. At that time, his brother-in-law did not dare to say anything. He just sat at the side with his head lowered, as if he was afraid that this scolding would affect him. Bien Yuanji felt that this was not the behavior of a husband. He defended his sister, but his sister wouldn't let him stand up for her. She said that it was just a few words of scolding, and she wouldn't lose anything. Now, this person who could not make the decision at home said that he wanted to raise him. Chapter 313, Gu Gang is here. Bien Yuanji lowered his head again. He always felt that it was impossible. Ding Jincheng was stunned when he saw that he did not agree immediately. On the other hand, the people from the Gu family became smug. Madame Zhao snorted coldly. Ding Jincheng, what are you thinking? Back then, it was your family who didn't want him and left him at our door. Now, you want to go back. Dream on. Who do you think you are? Do you think you can take or abandon him as you wish? Ding Jincheng instantly panicked. He thought that things would go smoothly. After all, the Gu family did not like Yuanji. B0x. Calm, you don't even treat him as your biological grandson. Since you don't like him, why are you still raising him? Wouldn't it be a good opportunity for me to take him away? Who doesn't treat him as a biological grandson? Gu Chuanzong suddenly scolded. Don't spout sh*t everywhere and ruin our Gu family's reputation. I, Gu Chuanzong, can raise my own grandson. I don't need an outsider like you. Ding Jincheng wanted to grab the dirt on the ground and throw it at his face. The most shameless person was this old man. That's right. Gu Dai leaned against the side and said lazily, Hey, you have to be careful with your words. Yuanji is doted on by us uncles, aunts, cousins, and is very happy. Why are you saying that we don't have any feelings? You don't have it in the first place. Ding Jincheng was furious. This was a well-known fact, yet they were still lying through their teeth. At this moment, the people from Gu village heard the commotion and came over to watch it. When they heard that Ding Jincheng wanted Bien Yuanji back, they were surprised that the Gu family didn't agree. The patriarch, Gu Gang, also came over, accompanied by a young and weak woman. He was the patriarch, so he naturally stood in the middle as soon as he came over. He frowned and looked at the two of them. What's going on? You're all living too well. Are you starting to look for trouble? How can that be? Patriarch, it's all because this Ding Jincheng went crazy and suddenly came to our place to take Yuanji away. Madame Zhao reported him first. Before Gu Gang could speak, his concubine, Madame Shen, covered her mouth and laughed. Why should he take her away? She's a child of the Gu family. How can we let an outsider take her away? Madame Zhao pursed her lips. She did not like this vixen. At such a young age, she was so indecent and followed someone who could be his grandfather. She even dressed up all day and led the children of their village astray. However, in front of the patriarch, Madame Zhao did not dare to say anything. She even had to lick her cheeks and say, "Isn't that so? If others find out, what will they say about our Gu family?" Shen nodded. This child is already 7 years old, right? In a few more years, he will be able to marry a wife with some betrothal gifts. Our Gu village will have more people and everyone will be happy. You people from Shangbei village, don't come and join in the fun. Go home and live your lives well. What you said makes sense. Clan leader Gu looked very happy. He felt that bringing this concubine out was a great honor. However, Madame Zhao frowned. What betrothal gifts? It's not easy for us to raise him, yet we're preparing betrothal gift for him. He has his own hands and feet. He can earn it himself. If he can't earn it, then don't get married. That's his life. Shen was a little surprised. You're not going to give him betrothal gifts. That's impossible. The county magistrate said it himself. Have you forgotten? No way. It's such an important thing. What did the county magistrate say? They really couldn't remember and panicked. Chapter 314, Shen's assistants. Shen shook her head and sighed. The county magistrate said that there are too few people in Yongning village now. It's lucky that this child survived the famine. We should nurture him well. When he grows up, he will offer some betrothal gifts and marry a good girl. He will give birth to more children to increase the population of Yongning Prefecture. Why? Have you forgotten such an important thing? Well, the members of the Gu family looked at each other. The county magistrate did talk a lot back then, and he vaguely mentioned getting married and having children. But the county magistrate was a well-educated man. His words were full of twists and turns. One simple sentence had to get so complicated that it made them dizzy. Shen clicked her tongue. Although the county magistrate might have said it casually, he might remember it at some point. I think we should take his words to heart. I even told my husband to pay some money for the wedding. The county magistrate will praise us later. B0X. Calm Gu Gang was a little confused. When did he say that he was going to offer money? He had always been a money grubber. How could he give away money? Frowning, Gu Gang looked at his concubine. Shen saw that the people from the Gu family were discussing this matter softly and did not notice her. She quickly whispered to Gu Gang, "Husband, why don't you understand? We can't let that child continue to stay in the Gu family. Look at how the Gu family treats him. He doesn't have enough to eat or wear. He's dressed like a beggar and they even let him work outside every day." Gu Gang was stunned for a moment before he heard her continue, "Husband, you're the chief. What will outsiders think of you when they see that the children in our village are living such a hard life? What will they think about the entire village? Do we still have our reputation? Do we still have our image? Look at the young man who came yesterday and was about to settle down here. Didn't he say that he met Bian Yunji at the entrance of the village? If this child continues to stay in our village, it will be a disgrace to the Gu village and to you. If no one comes here to settle down in the future, where will you get the money?" Gu Gang's body trembled, and he suddenly came back to his senses. Bian Yunji walked around the village in shabby clothes all day long, which made Gu Gang's eyes hurt. If outsiders saw him, they would think that his village was full of beggars. Seeing the change in his expression, Shen continued, "So, we can't let Bian Yunji stay in our village. If the county magistrate really remembers him and finds out that he's living such a hard life, he might blame the Gu family. However, as the head of the clan, you can't escape being scolded." Now that Ding Jincheng is finally willing to take the child away, just let him. When the county magistrate asks later, you can find a beautiful excuse and you might be praised. Gu Gang felt that what she said made too much sense. As expected, he had taken in the right concubine. She was much smarter than that woman at home. If not for the fact that they were in public, he would have hugged her and kissed her. Shen pinched him. Gu Gang cleared his throat and said, I did say that I wanted to prepare a gift for this child. Just one tael of silver. Old Gu, you have to find a good woman for this child. Just give her more betrothal gifts. It will be embarrassing if word gets out. It shows that you value the county magistrate's words and bring good luck to our Gu village. When Madame Zhao heard that they still had to pay so much money, she immediately refused and hurriedly said, Patriarch, actually, our family is really poor. Look at how many children there are in my second and third son's families. Yuanji can't eat well or wear warm clothes here. Since the Ding family wants it, let's give it to the Ding family. When Ding Jincheng heard this, he did not expect things to take a turn for the better. A smile instantly appeared on his face. Chapter 315, Taken away. Ding Jincheng secretly heaved a sigh of relief. Now, as long as he took this child away and changed his household register, he would be able to live up to Mulan's entrustment. However, just as he was about to take Bian Yuanzi's hand, someone rushed out from the other side. Ding Jincheng, how dare you! Everyone suddenly turned around and saw Madame Hu running over with disheveled hair. As soon as she came over, she pulled Ding Jincheng back. After pulling him out of old Gus' house, she slapped him hard. You're crazy. You actually want to bring this little bastard back. You can't even raise yourself. Why are you being a kind person and raising him? You're really crazy, crazy, crazy. Let me tell you, if you dare to bring him back, I'll beat him to death. B0X. Calm. Ding Jincheng's expression changed drastically. Mother, what are you doing? Let go. UNG is living too hard a life here. I promised Mulan to take good care of him. Don't cause trouble. You promised what? That little bastard was assigned to the old Gu family by the county magistrate. How dare you disobey the county magistrate's order? Do you want to die? Go back and don't come to the Gu village again, or I'll break your legs. Madame Hu was about to go crazy from anger. She thought that he had taken a fancy to that little B***tch and ran over here. She didn't expect him to adopt the little bastard for that Bien Mulan who was infertile. She couldn't tell that her son was a devoted person. No wonder he didn't even like Miss Jiang. Bien Mulan, that B***tch, still wanted to seduce her son's soul even after she died. When old Goose saw the sudden change in the situation, they were a little shocked. At this moment, they finally reacted and hurriedly went to stop her. Sister-in-law Hu, wait a moment. What's wrong with you? You came and went as you pleased. Do you think we're monkeys? It was Madame Jia who spoke. She reached out and blocked Madame Hu. Madame Hu was taller and stronger than her. She reached out and pushed her aside. Screw you. Tell that to the county magistrate if you dare. If the county magistrate says that he wants us to raise that bastard, he'll take him away without hesitation. Madame Jia immediately choked. The others present were also stunned. It was one thing for the Ding family to take Bien Yuanji away voluntarily, but the Gu family couldn't force them. Madame Hu snorted and pulled Ding Jincheng away. The latter was so anxious that he was sweating profusely. Why did his mother come all of a sudden? Mother, I'm not leaving. I want to raise Yuanji. Mulan sent me a dream last night and asked me to take good care of Yuanji. I can't, shut up. I knew you were thinking about that little B***tch. Why did she visit you in a dream? Do you think I'm easy to deceive? Madam Hu shouted outside. Old Ding, why are you still standing there? Hurry up and pull this embarrassing thing home. Madam Hu had pulled Mr. Ding over with her. However, when they arrived at the village entrance, Madam Hu heard that Ding Jincheng wanted to bring the child home, so she ran over quickly. At this moment, Madam Hu called out to Father Ding. Father Ding was a burly and strong man. No matter how much Ding Jincheng didn't want to leave, he was pulled away. The others looked at each other. Gu Gang lowered his head and quietly asked MDM Shen, "What should we do now?" MDM Shen was also a little confused. She glanced at a corner without a trace and said in a low voice, "Let's wait and see." The most important part of taking Bian Yuanji away was Ding Jincheng. Now that he was gone, how could they continue? The Gu family was especially furious. When they saw Bian Yuanji, they glared at him fiercely. If not for the fact that the onlookers were still around, Madame Zhao would have gone forward to hit him. Chapter 316, in Professional. However, when she passed by him, Madame Zhao still snorted. There's no need to eat tonight. Bian Yuanji slightly lowered his head. He knew that every time his brother-in-law came, he would have no dinner. Hence, he did not say a word and just stood there motionless with his head lowered. This time, even Gu Chuanzong was a little angry. He had made a fool of himself for nothing, so when he walked to his side, he said, "You don't have to eat tomorrow. You're just causing trouble for the family." Bian Yuanji didn't want to cry, but he couldn't control himself. B0x. Calm. It was fine for Madame Zhao to scold him. Her mother said that she was not his biological grandmother, but his grandfather was different. Why didn't he treat him as his grandson? The onlookers gradually dispersed. Watching Bian Yuanji standing alone at the gate of the courtyard, they all let out a sigh. Actually, so what if Ding Jincheng took him away? It would be strange if Madame Hu, that shrew, treated him well. He was afraid that his life would be worse than living in the Gu family. After all, the Gu family were his relatives. Gradually, no one was left at the entrance of old Gu's house, except for Bian Yuanji. Although it was already spring, his clothes were still very thin and cold. Suddenly, a person stood in front of him. He was tall and big, as if he was blocking the wind in front of him. Bian Yuanji raised his reddened eyes and a white steamed bun appeared in front of him. He was stunned for a moment before he heard the man in front of him say, "Eat. It'll warm you up. Hold on for another day." After saying that, he stuffed the steamed bun into his arms and strode away. Bian Yuanji was stunned. The white steamed bun was even bigger and whiter than the one the man gave him yesterday. It looked delicious. He couldn't help but take a big bite. Delicious. Wiping his tears, Bian Yuanji turned around and ate the white steamed bun in big mouthfuls. Then, he wiped his mouth and smiled. That was great. A steamed bun could last him until tomorrow. These 2 days, he always met good people who gave him steamed buns to eat. Xiao Qingyuan, who was standing far away, saw the relaxed smile on his face. He then turned around and left Gu village in large strides. Gu Yundong was still in the carriage. As it was a little far away, she did not see Madame Hu and Father Ding, who had arrived at Gu village from the other side to take Ding Jincheng away. It was only when Xiao Qingyuan came over and told her the process that she frowned fiercely. Go and Zhu, who were standing outside the carriage, also kicked the tree trunk at the side angrily. Why did that woman come out to cause trouble? Miss, what should we do next? Why don't we trick Madame Hu out and let Ding Jincheng finish the matter before letting her go back? How can we do that? We still have to get the child's household register out. It won't be a short time. Gu Yundong also shook her head. After Madame Hu finds out about what happened today, she will definitely stay by Ding Jinchang's side all day long. We won't be able to deceive her. Then what do we do? Gu Yundong thought for a moment and tapped her fingers lightly on the windowsill. After a while, she raised her eyebrows. Got it. What is it? Ah Go and Ah Zhu hurriedly approached. Gu Yundong smiled. I'm a professional in acting. Madame Hu did not believe that Ding Jinchang dreamed of her cousin. Then let her see her in person. Let's go to town first and buy some things we need. This time, she couldn't use the space. The town was close, and the carriage arrived not long after. Gu Yundong bought a lot of miscellaneous items. Then, she parked the carriage beside an inconspicuous small mountain ditch by the roadside of Shangbei village. Then, she asked Xiao Qingyuan, Ah Go, and Ah Pig to get off while she fiddled with the items on the carriage for a long time. Chapter 317, Wetting her pants after a long time, Gu Yundong drew the curtain. Unexpectedly, when they showed their faces, Ah Go and Ah Zhu took a few steps back and shouted, Ghost. Gu Yundong glared at them. Who are you calling? Her glare made the two of them shiver in fear. Xiao Qingyuan was still very calm. He went forward and sized her up. I can't see your original appearance at all. B0x. Calm, it's fine. Anyway, ghosts are the same. Madame Hu won't be able to recognize if I'm my cousin or not. Her hair was down, and her face was pale. Blood flowed from the corners of her eyes and nostrils, and there were heavy dark circles around her eyes. Coupled with her bright red lips, anyone who saw her would be frightened to death. How could they recognize her? If Madame Hu really had the guts, Gu Yundong would admire her. Gu Yundong had already looked at himself in the mirror in the carriage and expressed his satisfaction. Only then did she look at Ah Go and Ah Zhu. The two of them slowly leaned against each other, wanting to hug each other for warmth. It was true. When Lady Gu looked at him, they felt as if their souls were about to leave their bodies. Gu Yundong glanced at them. It's your turn. Oh, our turn. What are we going to do? Gu Yundong took out a set of things from the carriage. You'll pretend to be the black and white ghosts. No, they wanted to stay away from her. Now, she looked terrifying even during the day. They even had to be by her side at night. They were so scared that they peed their pants. Gu Yundong did not care about them. She made a tall hat to increase their height and make them oppressing. Coupled with the long tongue and dark circles under their eyes, they looked good. After dressing up, the group went straight to Shangbei village. When it was dark, they got out of the carriage and went straight to the Ding family. Ah Go and Ah Zhu had adapted to Gu Yundong's attire and found it interesting. Xiao Qingyuan stood in the courtyard to keep watch. Gu Yundong went to Madame Hu and Father Ding's room and stood by the bed with Ah Go and Ah Zhu, who were acting as the black and white ghosts. She reached out and patted Madame Hu's face. Madame Hu frowned and waved her hand. She turned around and continued sleeping. Gu Yundong frowned and asked Ah Go to wake her up. However, Madame Hu was sleeping like a dead pig. No matter how they shouted or patted, she couldn't wake up from the deep sleep. Ah Zhu waved his hand. Let me do it. He went up and pulled Madame Hu's hairs out, 2 at a time. Gu Yundong was speechless. What if you make her bald? Fortunately, this method worked. Madame Hu gasped in pain and rubbed her eyes. Unexpectedly, when she opened her eyes, 3 terrifying faces suddenly appeared in front of her. Ah! Madame Hu screamed and quickly crawled back, pressing down on Father Ding's finger. It was so painful that he suddenly woke up too. Gu Yundong shushed her. Don't scream. Madame Hu instantly felt like she was being strangled. She stared at the three people in front of her with wide eyes and trembling hands. Mr. Ding Tet Fotherding was so frightened that his face turned pale and he could not say a word. Gu Yundong could not help but sniffle. Why did it smell like urine? She glanced at Madame Hu and wanted to leave, but she held her breath and stayed. Mother, she called out faintly. Madame Hu shivered again. You, who are you? I don't know you. Boo-hoo, why don't you know me? Milan. I died so tragically, Milan ttt. Why are you looking for me? You're dead, but I didn't kill you. Boo-hoo, let me go. Chapter 318. This is how people die. Father Ding, who was standing at the side, probably felt that he was a man. At least he mustered up a little courage and said fearfully, Yes, Mulan. Back then, you were the one who said that you would save your share of rations for your brother to eat. That's why you starved to death. We only said a few words to you and didn't force you. Gu Yundong was stunned. So there were such twists and turns. It was obvious what kind of state Bien Mulan was in to make such a decision back then. The Ding couple had been complaining about her because she had been married for 4 years without getting pregnant and had to take another child with her on the way to escape. It was obvious how unpleasant the couple's words were. Intellectually, Gu Yundong knew that this was Bien Mulan's choice. But as Bien Mulan's cousin, she really wanted to strangle the two people in front of her. Go tugged at her from behind. Gu Yundong then continued, Yes, I was the one who voluntarily saved the rations for my younger brother. But what did I say before I died? I asked you to take good care of Yunji for me. You agreed. Did you send my younger brother, whom I exchanged my life for, to the old Gu family to be abused? B0X. Calm. The Ding couple was speechless. What could they say? They did agree back then, but wasn't Bien Mulan going to die at that time? Could they let her die with her eyes wide open? But neither of them dared to say it now, especially when Gu Yundong's tears of blood started to flow down slowly. The King of Hell said that my wish in this world had not been fulfilled. My obsession was too deep, and I could not be reincarnated. He asked me to come to the human realm to do my last thing. In the end, when I came here, I realized that you guys actually treated Yunji like this. My poor brother, his life is so bitter. She suddenly cried. Immediately after, a bowl that Madame Hu had placed by the windowsill suddenly fell to the ground and shattered. Madame Hu and Father Ding's faces turned pale. The two of them hugged each other tightly. With a bang, a small stool at the side fell over. Bam! The closet door opened by itself. Go moved his fingers behind his back and quietly retracted the fishing lines that were tied to these things. But Madame Hu was already frightened. Mulan, we didn't do it on purpose. Boo-hoo, it was the county magistrate who made the decision. It had nothing to do with us. Gu Yundong's voice continued to sound ethereal. I don't care. He can't stay in the Gu family. He can't stay in the Gu family. He can't stay in the Gu family. All right. We won't let him stay in old Gus' house. Well, bring him back tomorrow morning. Really, don't come looking for us. Gu Yundong slowly looked at her and suddenly smiled. The moment her blood-red lips parted, she was so frightening that her hair stood on end. Even Go and Zhu, who were standing beside her, had to restrain themselves with all their might to prevent their legs from moving outwards. That's what you said, he. The husband and wife nodded repeatedly. We promised to bring him out. You go. Just go. Satisfied, Gu Yundong slowly turned around. Madame Hu was about to heave a sigh of relief when she suddenly turned around and continued to smile at her. By the way, there's something I forgot to say. What's the matter? Madame Hu was trembling with fear. She only hoped that this ghost would finish speaking and leave quickly. She didn't even dare to look up at her face. It turned out that people were like this after they died. Chapter 319. Picking someone up. Gu Yundong smiled again and opened her bloody mouth. Before Madame Hu almost fainted, she said, "My younger brother's name is Bien Yuanji, not little bastard. If I find out that you call him that next time, I'll come and take you away with me." Madame Hu nodded quickly. Gu Yundong's face suddenly bled from all 7 orifices. She opened her mouth and giggled. Even her teeth were covered in blood. Madame Hu had just quietly looked up when her eyes rolled back in fright and she fainted. Mr. Ding was stunned for a moment. Then, he closed his eyes and fainted. The corners of Gu Yundong's mouth twitched. She gave Ah Go and Ah Zhu a look, and the 3 of them left silently and quickly. B0X. Calm. Father Ding only opened one eye quietly when he could not feel any movement. There was no one in the room. The door was open, and only the wind was blowing in. He immediately went limp. His back was drenched in sweat, and he shivered violently when the wind blew. After a long time, he pushed Madame Hu away in disdain and got out of bed trembling. He walked to the door and planned to close it. Unexpectedly, he saw his son lying unconscious on the ground in the central room. She was shocked and thought that Bien Mulan had killed him. He hurriedly went forward to take a look and heaved a sigh of relief. Fortunately, his son had just fainted. Father Ding quickly woke Ding Jincheng up and asked him what was going on. Ding Jincheng didn't know either. He rubbed his head and said with a frown, "I just heard Mother's loud cry and quickly came over to take a look. As soon as I walked to the central room, I was knocked out." Father Ding trembled and quickly told him what had happened. Ding Jincheng didn't quite believe it, but when he returned to his parents' room and saw the wet sheets on the bed, they were clearly frightened. The 2 of them quickly went forward and woke Madame Hu up. Madame Hu was still in shock. She grabbed Ding Jincheng's hand and said, "You must bring little Bien Yuanji back. You can't let him stay in the Gu family." "No." Ding Jincheng nodded repeatedly. None of them dared to sleep that night. Because Madame Hu's bed was smelly and messy, in addition to the broken bowls and fallen stools on the ground, and the open wardrobe door, everything indicated the terrifying scene that had just happened. Hence, the 3 of them went to Ding Jincheng's room and waited until dawn, shivering. Then, they changed their clothes and rushed to Gu Village. The people of Gu Village were about to go out to work when they saw the 3 members of the Ding family rushing over. What was going on? Was yesterday's incident not over yet? Some people who liked to join in the fun and were not important followed behind. When they saw that they were indeed going to old Gus's house, they immediately became excited. Someone also went to inform Gu Gang. Not long after, the entrance of old Gus's house was filled with people. When Gu Chuanzong came out and saw them, his expression immediately turned ugly. "What are you doing here?" "Grandpa, we're here to pick Yuanji up." Ding Jincheng took a step forward, his attitude exceptionally friendly and respectful. "Who's your grandpa?" Gu Chuanzong's face darkened. "Why? Do you want to take Yuanji away again? Yesterday, you refused no matter what. Is there no end to your family's drama?" "That's right." Madame Zhao followed them out. "What do you take my Gu family for? Do you think you can say whatever you want? Get lost." Madame Hu was furious and wanted to pounce on Madame Zhao and scratch her face. Chapter 320. 5 Taels of Silver and He's Yours. However, she could not do that. She even had to squeeze out a smile and apologize. "Uncle, Aunt, don't be angry. We weren't clear-headed yesterday, right? We went back and thought about it for the entire night. We felt that we had let Mulan down. Yuan-ji was entrusted to us by Mulan. We can't just leave him in the old Gu family. We feel guilty. The members of the Gu family acted as if they had heard a joke, especially Madame Jia. She leaned against the door and laughed hysterically. Sister-in-law Hu, why are you acting like this every day? I don't think you feel guilty. Yesterday, you said that you didn't want Yuan-ji. Today, you came over to ask for him again. What if you say that you don't want him tomorrow? Who can stand you making a fuss like this? That's right. Our Gu family is very busy. We don't have time to mess around with you, Gu Dai said loudly. The three members of the Ding family did not look good. They secretly despised him in their hearts. Busy? You, Gu Dai, are the laziest sloth in this village. Madame Hu suppressed the anger in her heart and said with a smile, No, no. I promise that after we take Yuan-ji away this time, we won't send him back. Who would believe you? Madame Hu was not someone who could be trusted. B0X. Calm, the third son of the Gu family, Gu Dahu, stroked his chin and suddenly said, Sister-in-law Hu's change today is too strange. Is your family plotting something? Are you going to sell Yuan-ji? Madame Chang, the third daughter-in-law, asked softly. Bien Yuan-ji, who had just walked out of the courtyard, was stunned. His small body shook violently, and he barely stood against the wall. Madame Jia's eyes lit up when she heard that. She rushed to Madame Hu and said, Sister-in-law Hu, third sister-in-law is right, right? You want to sell Yuan-ji? Let me tell you, that won't do. Yuan-ji has met the county magistrate. Can you bear the responsibility if you sell him? I'm not selling him. Who would believe you? Madame Jia snorted coldly. Then why are your words yesterday and today completely different? I told you, I felt guilty when I went back and thought about it. Who are you trying to fool? It's fine if you want to take Yuan-ji away. Give us some silver. We've helped you raise him for so long. You'll have to pay for his food, clothes, and accommodation. 5 taels, take him away. Madame Jia glanced at Gu Chuanzong. Seeing that he did not say anything, she thought that he had no objections. 5 taels of silver was not a small amount. At least for now, the Ding family could only take out this much. Bien Yuanji also looked at Gu Chuanzong. After a while, he finally walked to Gu Chuanzong's side. Grandpa, are you really? Gu Chuanzong frowned and sighed. Yuanji, it's not that I don't want to raise you, but you heard it yourself. It's your sister who entrusted you to the Ding family. If you leave with the Ding family, your sister will rest in peace. Your uncle and aunt have taken good care of you recently. It's only right for the Ding family to give them some money. Bien Yuanzi's heart turned cold as he let go of Gu Chuanzong's sleeve. I should have known. Forget it. It doesn't matter. Madame Hu was so angry that she almost vomited blood. She glared at Madame Jia and said, 5 taels of silver. Why don't you rob me? Are you giving it to me or not? If you don't give it, Yuan-ji won't be able to leave with you. Madame Hu gritted her teeth. This be *tch. Jia Maisie, don't force me. If you force me, I will say anything. Madame Jia raised her eyebrows. Oh, you're threatening me. Tell me, let's see what you have to say. Madame Hu was furious. I'll tell them about the lousy, bad, and vicious things you did. Chapter 321, How was Madame Yang injured? What did I do? I, Jia Maisie, do things openly and honorably. Don't slander me. Madame Hu had never seen such a shameless person. You do things openly and honorably. Have you forgotten about Gu Dajiang's wife and sister-in-law? Do you want me to tell you? Madame Jia's expression changed, but the other's curiosity was piqued. Sister-in-law who, what's wrong with Gu Dajiang's wife? Isn't she a fool? Tell us, what did Jia Meizi do? Jia Meizi panicked. She took 2 steps forward and wanted to shut Madame Hu's mouth. However, Madame Chang took a step forward and said, my second sister-in-law has always done things with a clear conscience. Sister-in-law who, don't spout nonsense here. You're slandering my second sister-in-law and even bringing up my first sister-in-law. You have to give us these 5 taels of silver today. Otherwise, don't even think about taking Bien Yung away. Ha! A clear conscience. Madame Hu was so angry that she laughed. She pointed at Madame Jia and said, she, Jia Meizi, has a vicious heart. Back then, she was the one who smashed Gu Dajiang's wife by the river and pushed her into the water. I saw it with my own eyes. It was real. If not for that, would Gu Dajiang's wife have become stupid? As soon as she said this, there was silence. B0XO. Calm. Everyone looked at Madame Jia and Madame Hu. Back then, didn't Madame Yang fall into the river? Was she pushed down? This, Madame Jia screamed and pounced forward. She immediately started fighting with Madame Hu. You're spouting feces and talking nonsense. I'll tear your mouth apart for slandering me. She was ruthless, and Madame Hu was not to be outdone. She was much stronger than Madame Jia. After a while, she rode on her and slapped her a few times. I'm slandering you. I saw it with my own eyes. I even saw you took away the stone that hit her head and found a place to bury it. Do you want me to take everyone and dig out that stone for you to see? I didn't. You're talking nonsense. I didn't. The 2 of them fought more and more fiercely. Madame Zhao was so angry that she scolded, what are you doing? How dare you hit someone at the entrance of my Gu family? Second brother, what are you waiting for? Hurry up and pull her away. Third sister-in-law, are you stupid? Why aren't you helping? Oh. Madame Chang went over, but she didn't dare to get close. She tugged at them twice to show that she was trying. Then, she saw Madame Hu wave a hand over and fall to the ground. Gu Dahu helped her back. Gu Dai wanted to help, but Father Ding was still there. Gu Gang could not stand it anymore and shouted, enough, stop fighting. As he spoke, he pointed at the onlookers and said, all of you, go up and separate them. Only then did the people from Gu village take action. One of them pulled Madame Hu, and another pulled Madame Jia. Gu Gang snorted. Gu Dajiang's family is gone. What's the use of saying this now? Gu Chuanzong, do you want to give Bien Yung to the Ding family or not? If you do, you can just accept 1 tael of silver. If you don't, you can raise him yourself and give him betrothal gifts in the future. When Gu Chuanzong saw that things had come to this, he quickly nodded. Yes. Gu Gang looked at Father Ding again. What about you guys? The Ding family could afford 1 tael of silver, but Madame Hu was unwilling. However, when she thought of Bien Mulan who came to look for her in the middle of the night, she could only nod. Let's give it to them. They're like a group of beggars. After giving them the money, Ding Jincheng carried out Bien Yung, who had become numb and didn't speak anymore. Then, he said to the Gu family, let's move his household register now. Chapter 322, finally done, why are you in such a hurry? Well, go tomorrow. Gu Chuanzong was unhappy. MDM Shen tugged at Gu Gang's sleeve and said softly, let's quickly finish this matter so that there won't be any complications. Gu Gang thought about it and agreed. Madame Hu was capricious, so he could not give her a chance to go back on her word. Hence, he glared at Gu Yundong and said, "Why tomorrow? It's still early. You can come back after you're done." As the village chief, he had to make a trip. Therefore, he walked up to Gu Yundong and said, "Give me the silver." B0XO. Calm. Gu Yundong was stunned. Gu Gang glared at him. "Why? Don't you need to bribe to move the household register?" Dr. Gu could only give him the silver. After giving it to him, he suddenly realized that the Ding family should pay for it. However, Gu Gang could not be bothered with him. He got someone to get an ox cart and sat on it. Dr. Gu could only get into the car unwillingly. Ding Jincheng asked Father Ding to bring Madame Hu back to the village first. He could do this. Madame Hu wanted to follow him, worried that he would be at a disadvantage alone. However, she had just fought with Madame Jia. Her face was bruised, her clothes were torn, and her right foot was twisted. Hence, she could only remind Ding Jincheng to be more careful. Only then did Father Ding carry her back. The three of them staggered out of Gu village on the ox cart. Not long after they left the village, they saw a carriage parked by the roadside. There was a young man sitting on the shaft of the carriage. They did not know him. Only Ding Jincheng remained silent with his head lowered and Bian Yuanji in his arms. Gu Gang and Gu Yundong had a discussion curiously. Not long after the ox cart left, Xiao Qingyuan walked over from afar. Ah, Zhu lifted the curtain and jumped up. "That's enough. As long as they settle the household registration. Let's go." Gu Yundong relaxed slightly and turned to look out of the window. He instantly felt refreshed. Therefore, she didn't notice Xiao Qingyuan's hesitant expression. However, before Xiao Qingyuan left, he asked Go to stay behind and instructed him to do something. The carriage did not move very fast. After all, the speed of the ox cart was limited, so they could only move slowly. After entering the county city, Gu Yundong went to the inn to see Madame Yang. Madame Yang didn't see her the entire night and was a little anxious. If Xiao Qingyuan hadn't come back to report, she wouldn't have been able to sleep at night. Now that she saw her, she quickly pulled her back. "Dong Dong, I missed you so much." "I miss you too. Have you eaten?" Madame Yang nodded, and Gu Yundong accompanied her to talk while waiting for news from Ding Jincheng. Ding Jincheng had already entered the county office. The person in charge of household registration was the secretary, so he could be considered to know Gu Yundong. Now that Ding Jincheng had come personally and explained the situation, he did not make things difficult for him. However, Ding Jincheng didn't want to transfer Bian Yuanji to the Ding family. Instead, he wanted to give Bian Yuanji an independent house. Yuanji is the only son of the Bian family. He's going to carry on the family name. If he moves to the Ding family, what if things get messed up in the future? Gu Yundong pursed his lips. Things get messed up. Wasn't he just afraid that the child would take away his assets when he grew up? However, this was no longer his business. The three of them completed their household registration and walked back. However, Ding Jincheng said that he would buy clothes for Bian Yuanji instead of going with them. In the end, after Gu Gang and the other man left, Ding Jincheng led the child straight to the inn. They didn't even look at the clothing store when they passed by. Bian Yuanji thought that he had brought him here to sell him. Especially when he saw Ding Jincheng bringing him to knock on a door of the room in the inn and saw a rich lady standing inside, this thought reached its peak. Chapter 323. Your cousin Yundong. Only Gu Yundong and Madame Yang were in the room. Xiao Qingyuan and the rest had returned to their rooms. Ding Jincheng let out a sigh of relief after bringing him over. "Yundong, I've brought him over. This is his household register. I'll leave it here." After saying that, he placed the thing on the table and turned to leave. Seeing this, Bien Yuanji subconsciously took 2 steps forward. However, he soon stopped and watched the door close in front of him. It was as if all the light had been blocked outside. He stood there alone, not knowing what to do. B0XO. Calm, a gentle voice came from behind him. Are you Yuanji? Bien Yuanzi's petite body trembled slightly as he slowly turned around. He then took 2 steps back and pressed his back against the wall, watching her carefully. Naturally, he did not recognize Gu Yundong. Gu Yundong was dressed very differently from before. Even if she was wearing the same clothes as before, he would not recognize his cousin. After all, the last time they met was in the first month of last year when he went to visit his uncle. He did not stay for long. Most of the time, he played with Gu Yunshu, who was about the same age, and did not speak much to Gu Yundong. When Gu Yundong saw his frightened expression, she cursed the Gu family in his heart. She took 2 steps closer to him. Bien Yuanji wanted to hide into the wall. You don't remember me. Then do you remember your eldest uncle? Gu Yundong stopped in front of him and squatted down to ask him. Bien Yuanji was stunned. Eldest uncle. Of course, he remembered that eldest uncle doted on him a lot. Before his sister died, she had said that if he returned to his hometown and didn't see his parents, he should look for his eldest uncle or 4th uncle. However, when he arrived at the Gu family, he couldn't find his eldest uncle or 4th uncle. He only saw his 2nd and 3rd uncles, who had never treated him well. Gu Yundong tried her best to make the smile on her face look kind and gentle. I'm your eldest uncle's daughter, cousin Yundong. Do you remember? Bien Yuanzi's body was not as tense as before. He just widened his eyes in surprise. Gu Yundong asked again, do you still remember Ashu? I remember that you guys played together last year and you said that he was your best friend. I'm Ashu's sister. Ah, Ashu. Eldest uncle. Bien Yuanji finally opened his small mouth and muttered softly. He looked at Gu Yundong, who was showing him kindness, and vaguely felt that he had seen her before. Cousin. Yes, I'm your cousin. Gu Yundong smiled. My current home is very far away. It's called Yongfu Village. I came back here to look for your eldest uncle, but I couldn't find him. I met Ding Jincheng and found out that you had been sent to the Gu family and had suffered a lot. That's why I asked him to bring you out. Yuanji, are you willing to go home with me? Go home. Bien Yuanzi's mind was in a mess. It turned out that she didn't want to buy him as a slave. Only then did Gu Yundong reach out and hold his tiny shoulders. She nodded and said, yes, I'll bring you back to your eldest uncle's house. Yunshu and Yunka are both there. Cousin and your eldest aunt are also there. Bien Yuanji came back to his senses and nodded quickly, I am willing to. I can work, cook, wash clothes, and feed pigs. I'll go to eldest uncle's house. Is that okay? Although he was unfamiliar with his cousin in front of him, he still remembered Ashu. Even if he was asked to go over and continue working, it did not matter to him. Chapter 324. It feels like a dream. Ashu was over there. He was his best friend. When he was sad, he could talk to Ashu. Ashu did not bully and laugh at him like the other cousins of the Gu family. Gu Yundong's heart ached when she heard what he said. She tightened her grip on Gu Yundong's shoulders and slowly released her grip when she felt the thin and weak bones under her palm. You don't have to work. When you come to eldest uncle's house, you just have to take care of yourself and help do what you can when we're busy. You're our family, not a servant. Family. It seemed like a long time since he had a family by his side. B0XO. Calm, blinking his eyes, Bien Yuanji was confused and in disbelief. He felt like he was dreaming. Gu Yundong patted his head. "Ah, Shu must be very happy to see you." She stood up and held his hand as she walked towards Madame Yang, who had been standing at the side. "Do you remember eldest aunt?" Bien Yuanji raised his head. He had an impression of Madame Yang. Firstly, it was because Madame Yang's situation was special and he easily remembered her. Secondly, it was because she was an adult and he had to greet the elders when he went to his uncle's house. He spoke more to her. When he entered just now, he was afraid and did not dare to look around. Only now did he notice her. Madame Yang also squatted down and hugged his small body. She patted his back gently and said with a smile, "Let's go home. I'll bring you home. Don't be afraid. Dong Dong is here. Don't be afraid." What? Bien Yuanji suddenly burst into tears. Perhaps it was because Madame Yang was an elder, and her smile was reassuring. Her embrace was warm, and her voice also made his uneasy emotions relax. Immediately, all his discomfort and grievances surged and he could not help but cry until he was hoarse. Madame Yang was shocked. She looked up at Gu Yundong helplessly. Gu Yundong blinked at her. Madame Yang patted Bien Yuanzi's back gently. "Don't cry, don't cry. Be a good boy, don't cry." Bien Yuanji had been suffering for too long. He had been treated like livestock by his relatives in the Gu family. Now that he was in the arms of his aunt, he finally understood what it meant to have a family member. Not all blood relations could be called family. He was crying so hard that he was out of breath. Seeing that he was about to faint, Gu Yundong went forward and pulled him out of Madame Yang's arms. She wiped his face with a handkerchief. "Stop crying. It's all in the past. Are you hungry? Let's eat first. You can take a shower and sleep. We'll talk after you rest, okay?" Gu Yundong's temper was much better now, especially when facing children. She was especially patient. Yes, this was all thanks to Yunshu, Yunke, and Madame Yang. After all, these were 3 babies. Now, with the addition of Bien Yuanji, Gu Yundong suddenly felt that she had the potential to be a kindergarten teacher. She suddenly shivered and got up to open the cover on the table. The food had been prepared long ago, and now it was warm enough to eat. Bien Yuanji was indeed very hungry. He had only eaten a steamed bun last night. At the sight of the delicious food, he couldn't help but swallow hard. However, he was probably tortured by the Gu family for too long. He still asked carefully, "Can I really eat it?" Gu Yundong smiled at him. "You didn't eat much in the past. Now, you can only eat soft porridge and some light and refreshing dishes. You can slowly eat something better later." Okay. That was good too. This seemed to be plain porridge. Even old Master Gu could not eat such porridge. Chapter 325, Dog Hasn't Returned. Gu Yundong saw that although he nodded, he did not dare to do anything, so she scooped a bowl for him and placed it in front of him. "Eat." She also scooped a bowl for Madame Yang. Madame Yang was very happy. She took a sip happily and said to Bien Yuanji, "Eat quickly. After you're done, I'll teach you to solve the puzzle. The puzzle is very fun. After you finish it, you'll see Ah Shu and Kiki." Bien Yuanji was curious. What was a puzzle? He couldn't help but take a sip. Then, he felt his entire body warm up. It was delicious. More delicious than anything he had ever eaten. Updated on B0xN0VL. He wanted to cry again. Bien Yuanji hurriedly wiped his eyes with the back of his hand and continued eating with a smile. Gu Yundong got up and went out, asking the waiter to prepare a bucket of hot water. She had bought 2 sets of clean clothes and some necessities for Bien Yuanji. Unexpectedly, when she opened the door, she saw Xiao Qingyuan standing not far away, looking at the door. Gu Yundong walked over. "What's wrong?" "I heard crying just now." That was why he was worried. Gu Yundong's expression darkened. "It's all the Gu family's fault." "It's fine. He's crying everything out." Dr. Gu was a selfish person. He didn't treat Bian Yuanji as his grandson at all. This child suffered worse than her family did back then. At least Gu Yundong and her siblings had Gu Dajiang to protect them. Although Gu Dajiang was usually so busy that he could not take care of them, the Gu family was really afraid of angering him. But Bian Yuanji, who didn't have his parents by his side and didn't have Gu Dajiang and fourth Uncle Gu protecting him, was almost tormented to death. They wouldn't do this even to strangers, right? Although I didn't find father this time, it's a good thing to bring Yuanji back. Older Aunt Gu had a total of 3 children. The eldest, Bian Mulan, didn't make it through the escape. The second child was a son, but unfortunately, he didn't grow up. When he was 4 years old, he died because of a fever. Older Aunt Gu had been traumatized for a long time. It was only 8 years ago that she was pregnant with Bian Yuanji. He was older Aunt Gu's only bloodline. As they were talking, the waiter came over with the cold water that was to be mixed with the hot water. Only then did Gu Yundong open the door and let them in. The 2 people in the room were almost full. Bian Yuanzi's stomach had shrunk due to hunger, so he was already full after eating a little bit. Although he still wanted to eat, he touched his stomach and obediently put down the spoon. It was difficult to bathe after eating. Gu Yundong showed him the new clothes and asked him to choose one. Bian Yuanji widened his eyes in astonishment as he looked at the brand new clothes. It took him a long time to touch them. The fabric was very comfortable and seemed to be very warm. It was completely incomparable to the rough clothes he was wearing. He looked up. "Are you going to let me wear them?" "Of course." "Don't you like the clothes?" Bian Yuanji hurriedly nodded his head. "Yes, I do. Take a bath and change into it later." Bian Yuanji couldn't help but burst out into laughter. After eating, he even had new clothes to wear. It was as if he was dreaming. He was so silly that Gu Yundong could not help but rub his head. Gu Yundong waited for the waiter to bring them hot water before she went out to call Ah Shu, who happened to pass by, to help Bian Yuanji bathe. Although Madame Yang was an elder, Yuanji was 7 years old after all. At this era, it was important for men and women to sit at different tables when they reached 7 years old. However, the conditions of rural families were limited, so even if they had grown up, they might still live in the same room. Madame Yang sat obediently outside the screen, completing the puzzle. From time to time, she would say a few words to Yuanji to prevent him from feeling nervous and uneasy in the same room as the unfamiliar Ah Shu. Gu Yundong went to look for Xiao Qingyuan. She was curious why Ah Go was not back yet. Chapter 326, Itchy Hands. Unexpectedly, just as she knocked on his door, Xiao Qingyuan happened to be coming out. He seemed to be looking for her for something. "What is it? Are you done over there?" Xiao Qingyuan asked as he let her in and closed the door. Gu Yundong nodded. "I felt that you had something to tell me just now." "What's wrong? Also, what did you ask Ah Go to do? Why isn't he back yet?" Xiao Qingyuan poured her a cup of tea and sat opposite her. "There's indeed something. Updated on B0xN0VL. Calm as he spoke, he pushed the cup in front of her. He realized that she would always drink water when she was angry. Gu Yundong looked at him in surprise. This person. She took the cup of water silently. "Go ahead." When the Ding family went to ask for the child today, they quarreled with the Gu family. At that time, Madame Hu said that she saw with her own eyes that your mother was hit on the head and pushed into the river by Gu Da's wife back then. That's how she became like this. Gu Yundong suddenly stood up. What did you say? I don't know if Madame Hu said it in her anger or if it's true. I let a go stay in Gu village and keep an eye on old Gu's family to see if it's true. If he can't find out, we can only ask Madame Hu. Gu Yundong's face was ashen. It was not an accident that her mother fell into the water and became like this. Was Jia Meizi the one who smashed and pushed her? Her mother had already suffered enough in the Gu family. She was low-key and hard-working, but Jia Meizi actually wanted her life. She suddenly lowered her head and took 2 sips of water. Xiao Qingyuan immediately poured more water for her. Don't worry. We'll talk about it when Dog comes back. Gu Yundong slowly sat down, her gaze cold. Back then, when Madame Yang became like this, she had suffered so many insults and abuses. There were always some malicious fellows in the village who would deliberately trick her when they saw her, giving her something she shouldn't eat or making her do something she shouldn't do. In the beginning, Madame Yang was really miserable. At that time, Gu Yundong was still young and had to take care of her younger sister, who was born half a year ago and had no one to take care of her. However, those bastards from the Gu family deliberately made Madame Yang go out to wash clothes and shoot pig grass. It was only when Gu Dajiang suddenly returned and saw Madame Yang being forced to kneel on the ground and kowtow to someone with his own eyes that he got angry and smashed a stone at that person's head. He had injured the guy, and Gu Gang had found an excuse to beat him up. At that time, Gu Dajiang's gaze was fierce, and he looked like he wanted to perish together with him. This made Gu Gang a little afraid. He was worried that he would really anger Gu Dajiang, so he could only ask him to compensate the victim and let him go. After that day, Gu Dajiang didn't go to the county restaurant to continue being an accountant. He stayed at the Gu residence and didn't work. He had to take care of Madame Yang and the children. Dr. Gu had no choice but to give in and promise to let Madame Yang stay at home and work in the future so that she would not be bullied by the villagers. Only then did Gu Dajiang return to Xingxing restaurant. He had no choice but to go back. Madame Yang still needed money to treat her illness. He had to earn money. Gu Yundong had always thought that Madame Yang's fall into the water was an accident. After all, someone in the village had said that they had personally seen her fall into the water. Then, Madame Yang was rescued immediately and did not drown. Unexpectedly, the culprit was Jia Meizi. Very good. Her hands were itchy now. Calm down first. Go should be back soon. Well, ask about the situation then. Alright. I'll wait for Go to come back. She said word by word, almost gnashing her teeth. Chapter 327, How dare you kill her? At this moment, Go was in the Gu family's small storeroom. Although it was called a small storeroom, it was actually filled with various hoes, farm tools, dustpans, and baskets. There was also a medium-sized wooden board in the room, which was Bian Yuanzi's bed. Go sat on the wooden board and looked at the storeroom that was leaking in all directions. He had a better understanding of the inhumaneness of the Gu family. He was waiting for Dr. Gu to come back. It would take some time for Dr. Gu to go to the county to move the household register. Updated on B0xN0VL. Calm as for the rest of the Gu family, they seemed to be staying in their rooms. No one came out, and no one knew what they were talking about. It was not until Gu Chuanzong entered the courtyard with a dark expression that Madame Zhao came out to welcome him. Gu Chuanzong did not stop walking. He said to her, "Go and call everyone over." With that, he entered the room. Madame Zhao muttered, but she still went to call everybody. When Go heard the commotion outside, he quickly stood up from the wooden board and quietly crawled to the window under the main house to squat. The main house was the best place in the entire Gu family. Behind the window was a small courtyard. It had been cultivated and planted as a vegetable field. When Gu came out, he also took out the wooden board from the storeroom. At this moment, he put the wooden board up and leaned against the wall, squatting down. The main room was filled with people one after another. The second and third branches, together with old Gu and Madame Zhao, filled up the not-so-big main room. Gu Chuanzong raised his head and glanced at them. His gaze finally landed on Madame Jia. Was that woman from the Ding family telling the truth? Madame Jia wanted to play dumb. Father, what are you talking about? Are you serious? How can I believe that shrew's words? If I can't believe it, why did you go up and hit her? Dr. Gu slammed the table. Do you think everyone is blind? No one will believe you if you say that you're not guilty. Madame Jia immediately lowered her head and muttered softly. However, Gu Dai said, Father, how long has it been? Why are you still bringing it up? Besides, eldest brother's entire family is dead. No one is here to settle scores now. The third son, Gu Dahu, glanced at him. He lowered his head and said softly, You can't say that. That woman was shouting in front of the entire village. Even if eldest brother's family is no longer around, we can't pretend that what second sister-in-law did never happened. What if the villagers point fingers at us in the future? Can our Gu family's daughters get married in the future? Madame Zhao originally did not think that it was a big deal. In her opinion, even if Madame Yang died, it would be her life. However, when she heard her third son's words, she was instantly furious. She stood up and rushed towards Madame Jia, hitting her in the face. You troublemaker, how can you be so capable? You even dare to throw a stone at someone. You're too vicious. It's not enough that you harmed yourself, but you also dare to implicate us. Gu Dai glared at his third brother and went up to stop Madame Zhao. Mother, stop. What's done is done. What do you want? Madame Zhao was accidentally pushed by him and took 2 steps back. Madame Chang happened to support her. Mother, be careful. She lowered her voice. Don't anger second sister-in-law. She was unhappy when Sienna was sold. When Madame Zhao heard this, she suddenly shivered. What did she mean? Could it be that Madame Jia dared to kill her? Chapter 328. Old Gu was beaten up. Madame Jia suddenly raised her head and glared fiercely at Madame Chang. Suddenly, she rushed over, grabbed Madame Chang's hair, and gave her 2 tight slaps. Madame Chang was caught off guard and fell. Gu Dahu reacted quickly and went forward to pull Madame Jia up and push her to the side. Second sister-in-law, what are you doing? Why? You hit eldest sister-in-law and now you want to hit your third sister-in-law. It seems that none of your sisters-in-law will have a good ending, right? Pfft, what kind of sister-in-law is she? Madame Jia sneered. She couldn't care less and pointed at Madame Chang. Why did I hit eldest sister-in-law? You should ask your wife properly. If she hadn't said in front of me that eldest sister-in-law secretly seduced my day, would I have gone to settle scores with her? Updated on B0xN0VL. Calm. Madame Chang trembled in Gu Dahu's arms. She sobbed and retorted, Second sister-in-law, don't talk nonsense. When did I say that? Eldest sister-in-law had a man. Why would she seduce second uncle? You still dare to deny it, you still dare to deny it. Madame Jia wanted to rush up and hit her again. You said that eldest uncle is not mother's biological son, and father doesn't treat him well, so eldest sister-in-law's life is the most difficult. So in order to live a good life, eldest sister-in-law wants to secretly hook up with our day. Did you say that? Is that right? Madame Chang shook her head vigorously. I didn't. I really didn't say anything. You slut, I knew that you two were bad people. When eldest uncle was around, you guys abused them. Now that they're not around, you're here to deal with us, right? When Sienna was sold, it was you, slut, who sowed discord. Alright, your daughter was saved, but you want my daughter to go out and suffer as a servant. I've long wanted to beat you to death. Gu Dahu said angrily, second sister-in-law, are you crazy? You're biting people everywhere. You two are not good people. Ever since you came back, you've been using Sienna as an excuse and don't do anything. Father and mother feel guilty and let you lie at home like corpses every day. Now, you've done something wrong and let the entire village know that our family has a vicious woman. How dare you blame my wife here? As soon as Gu Dahu got involved, Gu Day naturally had to protect Madame Jia. The two families were arguing fiercely. The children on both sides were also secretly competing. The entire main house was like a market, revealing all their shortcomings. In the past, with Gu Dajiang around, the second and third sons had the same parents. Naturally, they were on the same side and didn't get along with Gu Dajiang. Now that Gu Dajiang's family was gone, only the two families lived under the same roof. However, Gu Day and his wife were lazy. When they were working, they would slack off if they could. The third branch had long lost their patience. Now that they had finally found Gu Da's fault, they naturally had to make use of it. If they could poke someone's wound, they would poke it. It was best to take the opportunity to split up the family and let the two lazy people from the second branch fend for themselves. Madame Zhao was stunned. So her two daughters-in-law had actually done so much behind her back. She looked at old Gu, who also had a sullen face. His two sons, whom he doted on the most, had actually hated each other to this extent. His head hurt from the noise. He closed his eyes for a long time before slamming the table. Shut up, all of you. No one listened to him. The two sides were in a heated argument and even started fighting. It was not known who was careless, but one of their fists missed and knocked old Gu, who was walking over angrily, to the ground. Madame Zhao screamed, "Old man." The quarreling in the main room finally stopped. Chapter 329, Bak Ah Go, who was under the window, heard what happened and cursed in his heart. He deserved it. Dr. Gu was sent to the bed. Madame Jia immediately said, "I'll go find a doctor." After saying that, she ran out. Her positive attitude made Ah Go feel that something was wrong. After hesitating for a moment, Ah Go followed her silently. Madame Jia was not on the way to call a doctor. She secretly ran to the foot of a mountain and looked around. When she did not see anyone, she quickly squatted under a tree and dug. Updated on B0xN0VL. Not long after, a stone was dug out. Ah Go quickly guessed that this stone should be the one that hit Madame Yang's head. Madame Jia hugged the stone and looked around. Ah Go hurriedly hit his body. She quickly filled in the hole she had dug and stepped on it forcefully. Then, she took the stone and left. She originally wanted to throw it into the river, but now that the riverside was filled with women washing clothes, she could only find a random place to throw it away. Anyway, Madame Hu only said that she saw the place where the stone was buried. Now that there were no more stones in that place, what else could she say? Only then did Madame Jia hurriedly run to find a doctor. Ah Go waited for her to leave before he went over to pick up the stone. The stone was not big, and it had been a few years. There were no traces left on it. However, Go still tore off a piece of his sleeve and carefully wrapped the stone. Seeing that it was getting late, he hurriedly returned to Jiangyu County. Gu Yundong was sitting in the room and listening to Madame Yang humming a tune. Bien Yuanji had just fallen asleep. He didn't seem to be sleeping well. His brows were tightly knitted. It wasn't until Madame Yang hummed older Aunt Gus' tune that he slowly fell asleep. Gu Yundong tilted her head and looked at Madame Yang's confused eyes. If she returned to normal in the future and recalled the humiliation she had suffered in the past, would she be very sad and painful? However, she could not let her remain foolish forever. This was unfair to Madame Yang. When she had the chance, she would ask Dr. Song if Madame Yang could forget this unhappy memory after she was cured. Just as she was engrossed in her thoughts, there was a soft knock on the door. Gu Yundong stood up and said to Madame Yang, "Mother, Yung is asleep. You should rest too." "I'm not tired." Madame Yang actually enjoyed this state. Deep down, she still wanted to take care of others. Previously, on the way to escape, she had been feeding and dressing the two children with Gu Yunka on her back. This seemed to have become her bodhi's memory. It was just that she had been out with Gu Yundong during this period of time and did not have Ah Shu and Kiki by her side to take care of. Dong Dong did everything by herself, so Madame Yang was a little perturbed. Sometimes, there was a panic in the depths of her heart that she was not needed. Now that Bien Yung was here, she was much calmer. Actually, Gu Yundong had long noticed her state, but she could not think of a solution for the time being. After all, she really did not need her mother to dress and wash her face. Pursing her lips, she opened the door and went out. Gu Yundong guessed that Ago had returned. Sure enough, when she went to Xiao Qingyuan's room, she saw Ago sitting on a stool with a serious expression. In front of him was a stone covered in mud. Seeing Gu Yundong enter, Go immediately stood up. "Mississippi." Gu Yundong's gaze fell on the stone and he quickly guessed its origin. Go looked at her worriedly. He glanced at Xiao Qingyuan, who was also silent. No one knew what he was thinking. Gu Yundong had already walked to the stool and sat down. "Speak." Chapter 330. Let them have a taste of blood. Go nodded and immediately repeated what he had heard under the window of old Gus' house. His memory was extremely good, and he could almost recall everything that everyone had said. Gu Yundong listened quietly, her gaze fixed on the rock. After Go finished speaking, she even poured him a glass of water. Go felt that the latter's mood was a little strange now. He had clearly said it with righteous indignation, but the lady was so calm that there were no ripples. Updated on B0xN0VL. Calm. Only Xiao Qingyuan knew that this was the calm before the storm. Sure enough, after she took the teacup from Xiao Qingyuan and drank the water, the teacup was crushed by her. Go was speechless. Was Miss Gu that strong? He tried to exert his strength, and even the veins on his face popped out, but the teacup was still intact. Go silently put the teacup back and asked Gu Yundong, "Miss, what should we do next?" "We must teach old Gus family a lesson." More than a lesson. She wanted them to have a taste of blood. "Tell us." "Well, do it," Xiao Qingyuan said. At the side, Go nodded desperately. Gu Yundong thought of what old Gus family had done. Old Gu cared about his face and was selfish and hypocritical. Madame Zhao was unreasonable, ruthless, and unreasonable. The second branch was lazy, vicious, and enjoyed life. The third branch was a couple who specialized in sowing discord in the dark. Coincidentally, she could deal with them all at once. Gu Yundong began to roll up her sleeves, eager to make a move. "How about this?" Gu Yundong asked the others to come in and explained many things in detail. Mao and the others nodded as they listened. In the end, their eyes lit up. After Gu Yundong finished planning everything, she let Mao and the rest go to bed while she prepared to return to her room. Behind her, Xiao Qingyuan suddenly asked, "What about me? Aren't you busy with Gu Gang's family? Do you need me to make a plan for you?" Actually, there was no need. Xiao Qingyuan knew that she wanted to deal with old Gu's family. As the patriarch, Gu Gang might cause trouble, so he just had to stir up trouble in Gu Gang's family. But... yes, he said seriously and sincerely. Gu Yundong's mouth could not help but twitch. She sat back down. Xiao Qingyuan poured her a glass of water and sat up straight, looking like he was all ears. But the next moment, he saw Gu Yundong frowning as if she was thinking hard. His heart ached instantly. He immediately stood up. Go back and rest. I can settle it. Didn't you just say, I suddenly had an idea? Gu Yundong was speechless. I don't believe you. You had a flash of inspiration. Yes, I just thought of it. Xiao Qingyuan nodded affirmatively. His expression was exceptionally serious, and he spoke as if it was true. Gu Yundong could not help but want to laugh. Why was this man so cute? She was originally filled with frustration today, but when she saw him like this, she suddenly felt relieved. After dealing with old Gu's family, she felt that she should have a good chat with Xiao Qingyuan. Gu Yundong returned to her room and she reserved another room beside. In any case, there was really no business in this inn. Gu Yundong and her gang's arrival had increased its popularity. The next morning, Ago and Zhu set off. However, before they left, they took the stone wrapped in cloth with them. Not long after, Shu and Mao also left the inn. At this moment, Gu Yundong carried the food into the room and asked Madame Yang and Bian Yuanji to eat. Bian Yuanji walked to the table and his eyes widened when he saw Xiao Qingyuan enter. Chapter 331:1 Can do anything. Wasn't this the person who gave him the white steamed bun? Bian Yuanji blinked. So, did his cousin send this guy over? What about the one from the day before? Was it also his cousin's doing? His eyes suddenly curved into crescents, and he smiled happily. Xiao Qingyuan noticed his gaze and couldn't help but look at him. Updated on B0xN0VL. Calm Bian Yuanji hurriedly lowered his head and ate obediently. However, from the corner of his eye, he saw Xiao Qingyuan scooping porridge for Gu Yundong. He could not help but think to himself that this was his cousin-in-law. She looked better than his ex-brother-in-law. She would definitely be happy in the future. Definitely. After everyone at the table finished eating in silence, Xiao Qingyuan said, "Someone will come over later." Gu Yundong raised her eyebrows. Xiao Qingyuan looked at the time and walked to the windowsill. He lowered his eyes and looked at the people coming and going below. After a while, a familiar-looking woman walked over and raised her head to look over. When she saw Xiao Qingyuan, she quickly lowered her head. This person was Gu Gang's concubine, Madame Shen. Madame Shen was holding a basket in her hand and there was a woman beside her. She did not notice Madame Shen's abnormality and was bargaining with the vegetable seller by the roadside. Seeing that the discussion was intense, Madame Shen suddenly said in a low voice, "I'm a little unwell. I'll go to the inn opposite to borrow the outhouse. If you've bought the vegetables, wait for me under the willow by the river." The woman frowned. She wanted to say that she was lazy and had a lot of feces and urine, but she still forced a smile. "All right, go ahead. But you have to give me the money for the groceries." Madame Shen gave her the money and the basket. She hurriedly turned around and entered the inn. The woman pursed her lips, but she was a little happier when she saw the money in her hand. She worked even harder to argue with the vegetable seller. If she could get the price lower by 1 copper coin, she would be able to keep 1 more copper coin. Madame Shen entered the inn and looked at the second floor. When she saw Xiao Qingyuan, she hurriedly came up. After entering, she saw Gu Yundong, Madame Yang, and Bian Yuanji. Bian Yuanji also saw her. Of course, he recognized this person. In the past, when Madame Shen pitied him, she would occasionally give him some food. Bien Yuanji had a good impression of her and would not call her a vixen behind her back like the other children in the village did. Madame Shen was slightly surprised to see Bien Yuanji, who had changed completely. She smiled and nodded at him before looking at Gu Yundong. "You must be Miss Gu." "Miss Shen," Gu Yundong said with a smile. When Madame Shen heard her address, she was still in a daze. Ever since she became Gu Gang's concubine, she had heard many vicious and unpleasant titles. The best was Madame Shen. It had been a long time since anyone called her Miss Shen. Madame Shen was a little moved. She secretly took a deep breath and said, "I don't have much time. I'll make it short. Let's go to the room next door." Gu Yundong asked Madame Yang to teach Bien Yuanji to solve the puzzle, and the three of them went to Xiao Qingyuan's room. Originally, Xiao Qingyuan could have gone to the Gu village to look for Madame Shen. However, Gu Gang's wife kept a close eye on her and was especially keen to find trouble with her. Just 2 days ago, when Xiao Qingyuan went to look for her, he was almost seen by that woman. Madame Shen took the opportunity to go out. She even brought Gu Gang's daughter-in-law, Madame Yu, with her. Since ancient times, mother-in-law and daughter-in-law had always been difficult to get along. Madame Yu and her mother-in-law had always been at odds. Now that she had Madame Shen as her second mother-in-law, wouldn't she be close to her so that they could deal with the mother-in-law together? After the three of them sat down, Madame Shen asked, "What do you want me to do?" "What can you do?" Madame Shen sneered. "As long as Gu Gang receives retribution, I can do anything." Chapter 332, Shen's hatred. Madame Shen was indeed saved by Gu Gang's grandson, Gu Wanbao. She was originally a girl from a small town, the only daughter of her parents. Her family background was not bad. When she grew up, her parents wanted to find a son-in-law for her, but the conditions of a live-in son-in-law were not particularly good. After some selection, she was already 17 or 18 years old. Then, the Shen family left Yongning Prefecture because of the famine. Unfortunately, the Shen family's parents were gone. Only Madame Shen was barely alive. She had promised her parents that she would take care of herself and save her life. Therefore, when Gu Wanbao saved her, she was sincerely grateful. Updated on B0xN0VL. Calm. Even though the rest of the Gu family looked at her sloppy appearance with disdain, even though she knew that the Gu family was not a good family, even though after she washed her face, the three males of the Gu family looked at her strangely, Madame Shen was already prepared to be a slave. They had saved her life, so it was not too much to be a slave. However, this did not include the fact that Gu Gang had forcibly defiled her when she was completely unwilling. The pain from that day was still unforgettable and heart-wrenching. There were no good people in old Gu's family. None of them were innocent. This included Gu Wanbao and Madame Yu, who had sent her to Gu Gang's bed. She was the woman who had been bargaining with the vegetable seller. Madame Yu was Gu Wanbao's mother, so she didn't like Madame Shen. Not only did Madame Shen have no one to rely on, but even her man had to peek at this woman from time to time. Coupled with the fact that Gu Wanbao was liking her more and more, Madame Yu was a little anxious. Perhaps because she had been the village chief's daughter-in-law for a long time and felt that her family was superior to others, Gu Wanbao had to marry a girl from the county. Therefore, Madame Yu found an opportunity and secretly sent Madame Shen to her father-in-law's bed. This way, Gu Wanbao would not marry this woman, her own man would not dare to look at this woman, and she would be able to disgust her annoying mother-in-law. Everyone would be happy. Only Madame Shen was almost sent to hell. Gu Wanbao, on the other hand, was dissatisfied and wanted to make a fuss. After being threatened and tempted by Gu Gang, he stopped. However, MDM Shen knew that the way Gu Wanbao looked at her was even more unscrupulous and dirty than before, as if she was just an unpresentable thing. Sometimes, she even thought of buying a bag of arsenic and poisoning everyone in old Gus's family to death. However, she had promised her parents that she would live well. Hence, she was waiting for an opportunity. Now, this opportunity had arrived. Madame Shen looked at Xiao Qingyuan and Gu Yundong with a hint of madness in her eyes. I just want to keep my life. I'll do whatever you want me to do. Then let Gu Gang and Gu Wanbao fight, Xiao Qingyuan said. MDM Shen was stunned. Let Gu Gang and Gu Wanbao go against each other. Gu Wanbao was actually a coward. When facing Gu Gang, he could only retreat. If they were to fight, he would have to be forced into a corner. Xiao Qingyuan said, although Gu Wanbao is timid, he grew up under Gu Gang's dominance. There are some things that he doesn't dare to say. Didn't Gu Gang find a marriage for him? Let Gu Gang ruin this marriage. Gu Wanbao, before he could finish, he was interrupted by MDM Shen. There's no need to say anything else. I have an idea. Xiao Qingyuan and Gu Yundong looked at each other. Seeing the determination in MDM Shen's eyes, they did not say anything else. If you need help, you can look for Ah Shu and the others. You've seen them before. Alright, I'll go back first. MDM Shen stood up and turned to leave the inn. Gu Yundong looked at her back and frowned slightly. Why do I feel that her thoughts are a little dangerous? Xiao Qingyuan had this feeling in his heart too. Chapter 333. Something happened to the old Gu family. MDM Shen returned to MDM Yes side and smiled again. Madam, you complained impatiently, what took you so long? I've been standing here for a while. I had no choice. My stomach suddenly felt uncomfortable. I really don't know if I ate something wrong. MDM Shen sighed and frowned slightly. She looked a little haggard. MDMU immediately exclaimed, the food this morning was made by mother-in-law. Could it be that she wanted to say something but hesitated, as if she was concerned. Seeing MDM Shen's expression suddenly darken, she immediately felt happy. She loved watching these two mother-in-laws fight. Because Madame Shen was not feeling well, the two of them sped up. After hurriedly buying things, they took the ox cart back. In the end, just as they got off the ox cart at the village, they suddenly saw the doctor in town running in hurriedly. The person leading the way was actually Gu Dai. Beside them, the women in the village were discussing mysteriously. Madame Yu was a person who liked to join in the fun. She quickly ran over and asked around. The woman immediately said, something happened to Gu Dai's wife. This morning, when she carried her clothes to the river to wash them, she was suddenly knocked on the head and fell into the river. Ah! Madame Yu was surprised. Is that person still alive? She's alive. Someone downstream saw her fall into the river and quickly saved her. Speaking of which, it's strange. That person only saw Jia Meizi fall into the river, but he didn't see anyone push her down. Isn't this situation exactly the same as when Gu Dajiang's wife fell into the river? Do you think Gu Dajiang's wife came back to take revenge? The person who spoke at the end lowered his voice, carrying a strange aura. When others heard this, they could not help but shiver. Don't spout nonsense. If Gu Dajiang's wife wants revenge, why didn't she come over earlier? She didn't know who hit her head. If it weren't for the Ding family's wife yesterday, who would know? That's true. Why don't we go to old Gus' house to take a look and ask if that's true? The people gathered here were all gossipy. They were very curious. As soon as someone said this, although they were also a little afraid that Madame Yang's ghost would not disperse. There were many people and it was broad daylight, so there was nothing to be afraid of. MDMU was also curious and wanted to take a look, so she went over and said to MDM Shen, "If you're not feeling well, go back quickly. Bring everything home first. I'll take a look at old Gus's house too. I'll tell you when I come back." After saying that, she stuffed the basket in her hand into Madame Shen's hand. "All right, I'll go back first." Before MDM Shen could finish speaking, MDMU impatiently followed the others towards old Gus's house. MDM Shen pursed her lips and returned to the Gu residence. At this moment, the Gu residence was exceptionally deserted. The courtyard door was not locked, but there seemed to be no one around. MDM Shen put down her things and looked around. She realized that only Gu Wanbao was sleeping on the bed. The others might have gone to old Gus's house. MDM Shen's eyes flickered slightly. She walked into the courtyard and deliberately made a loud sound. Bang! It immediately spread into the room. Gu Wanbao jolted and sat up on the bed. Frowning, he rubbed his eyes and looked out sleepily. Just as he was about to curse, he suddenly heard a low cry. Chapter 334, You're My Darling. Gu Wanbao was stunned. He immediately got off the bed and looked in the direction of the voice. He saw MDM Shen sitting in the central room with her head lowered, wiping her tears. That low sobbing voice was actually indescribably melodious and pleasing to the ear. Gu Wanbao could not help but feel an itch in his heart. He looked around and saw that there was no one around, so he quietly approached her. "Why are you crying?" MDM Shen seemed to be shocked. She suddenly looked up with tears in the corners of her eyes. Why are you home?" She quickly wiped her tears and turned her back to him. "I just came back from work and I'm tired. I'm resting in my room." In fact, he had been fooling around outside for the entire night and had only returned in the morning. After all, he was going to get married soon. At that time, it would be inconvenient for him to do anything with a wife at home. Of course, he had to go out and have a good time before he got married. He asked again, "Why are you crying?" MDM Shen shook her head. "It has nothing to do with you." "How so?" "We're family now." "Tell me quickly, who bullied you?" MDM Shen sneered. "What family? Who's your family? You're getting married soon. When the time comes, your family will be another woman." "What am I?" As she spoke, she started crying again. She was even sadder than before. Gu Wanbao was stunned for a moment. He carefully thought about what she meant and his eyes lit up. He smiled casually. "You can't bear to leave me." MDM Shen did not speak and only lowered her head to hide her tears. Wasn't her silence a tacit agreement? Gu Wanbao's vanity was greatly satisfied. He leaned forward. "Tell me, did you miss me?" MDM Shen seemed to be annoyed by his interrogation. She suddenly turned around and pushed him. "So what if I did? You're going to marry someone else. I'm already your grandmother." Gu Wanbao laughed. "What grandmother? Is there a grandma as young as you? You're my darling. I really cherish you." I can't tell." She looked as if she didn't believe him, but the corners of her mouth curled up uncontrollably. Gu Wanbao looked at her seriously. "Don't be sad. My heart is filled with you. You ignored me a while ago. Were you angry with me? Now that you see that I'm getting married, you're nervous." "Nervous about what? Why should I care?" "You don't mean what you say." "I'm just..." Before MDM Shen could finish speaking, footsteps came from outside. "I'll hide first." Gu Wanbao quickly turned around and returned to his room. Madame Shen looked at his back and snorted. The next moment, Gu Gang's wife, Madame Wang, strode in. When she saw Madame Shen, she scolded her, "How long have you been here? Don't you have to work? If everyone is waiting for you to cook, won't we starve to death?" Gu Wanbao walked out with sleepy eyes. "Grandma, why are you shouting? You woke me up." Madame Wang's expression changed. She quickly went forward and said, "Wanbao, you're here. I'm sorry, I didn't notice. I won't be noisy anymore. Why don't you sleep for a while more? I'm already awake." "Why should I sleep?" He looked around. "Where are my parents and the others?" "They're all at Gu Chuanzong's house. His family has the most trouble." Madame Wang was originally watching the commotion, but when she saw her daughter-in-law, Madame Yu, go over, she found out that they had returned from the county city and hurriedly ran back to find trouble with Madame Shen. Gu Wanbao's interest was piqued. What happened to that family? It said that they encountered a ghost. It's broad daylight. Where did the ghost come from? Then I'll go take a look too. Gu Wanbao ran out. When he arrived at old Gus' house, he saw that it was indeed surrounded by people. When he finally squeezed in, he heard his grandfather talking. Chapter 335, Scared to Death, Why Doesn't Your Family Ever Stop? Previously, Bian Yuanji attracted a county magistrate. 2 days ago, the Ding family's wife came to cause trouble. Today, you said that your wife encountered a ghost. Can't you live a good life? Gu Gang was very impatient. He lectured Gu Chuanzong like a grandson. Gu Wanbao listened with great interest outside. However, he was curious about what Gu Da's wife looked like after she encountered a ghost. Hence, he quietly blended into the crowd and walked towards Gu Da's room. There were a lot of people surrounding Gu Da's room and they couldn't be chased away. Everyone wanted to hear what the doctor had to say. The old doctor only took her pulse slightly and said, "She's fine. She was just shocked. She just needs to rest well." "But doctor, there's a big bump on the back of my wife's head. How can she be fine?" Update on B Omicron X0 VL. C Omicron M. The old doctor glanced at Gu Day. "You said it's a big bump yourself. It will disappear after a while. What's the hurry?" Gu Day wanted to say something, but the old doctor had already left impatiently. As soon as he left, the others immediately asked, "Da's wife, what happened? Did you see anyone smash your head? Did you really encounter a ghost?" Jia Meizi, who had already woken up, could not help but shiver. She did not know who hit her on the head, but she knew that she was not by the river when she fainted. When she was at the foot of the mountain, she felt a pain in her head and fainted. However, the women who had saved her just now said that when they saw her, she was standing by the river upstream. They called her a few times, but she did not respond. Instead, she fell straight into the river. And there was no one beside her. She looked as if she had been possessed by a ghost. Without needing anyone to remind her, Jia Meizi almost immediately thought of Madame Yang. Wasn't it exactly the same when she pushed Madame Yang into the river? But the problem was that when she pushed Madame Yang, she happened to be at the corner of the river. At that time, a big rock blocked her figure. Therefore, no one could see if Madame Yang had fallen accidentally or been pushed down. However, no one had expected someone to be so vicious as to kill someone. Therefore, when Gu Dajiang asked, the women by the river said that she had slipped and fallen into the river and hit her head. As it happened, Madame Yang had become stupid, so she naturally could not defend herself. However, Madame Jia was different. There were no obstacles around the place where she fell into the water. Everyone could clearly see that she was standing alone by the river with her body leaning forward. At that time, a woman called out to her. Then, she fell. Jia Maisie was still afraid when she thought about it. She even felt that Madame Yang might be beside her. The people in the room were still discussing loudly. Gu Day had a headache from the noise and suddenly roared, "All of you, get out. Didn't you hear the doctor say that my wife needs a good rest? Get lost." As he spoke, he asked his eldest son, the 12-year-old Gu Feier, to chase them away. Gu Feier picked up the broom beside him and waved it at the crowd. A group of gossipy women. "Do you have nothing better to do? Get out, get out." As he did this, everyone left one after another. However, they were cursing and swearing. Some even said that Jia Maisie deserved it. This was her retribution. The third branch of the Gu family, Gu Dahut and his wife, also came to visit. The two of them looked at each other and laughed. Now, the two branches had completely fallen out with each other and did not even greet each other. Seeing Jia Maisie encounter such a thing, the two of them were indescribably happy. Unexpectedly, just as they were about to return to their room, they suddenly heard two voices discussing from the corner of the wall. Chapter 336, Hiding Merit and Fame. Gu Dahut suddenly stopped in his tracks and pulled Madame Chang back. He pressed his lips together and shushed her. Soon, the discussion gradually became clearer. Gu Da's wife must have suffered retribution. Madame Yang must have come back to take revenge on her. Who asked her to be so vicious and evil? Do you think Gu Day will also suffer retribution? Gu Day didn't break his sister-in-law's head and push her into the river, right? Otherwise, why was Jia Maisie the only one who got into trouble today? Heh, you don't know about this, right? Another person said mysteriously. Let me tell you. Gu Day was drunk some time ago and personally said that on the way to Qingan Prefecture, he knocked his niece's head and even snatched a tael of silver. I heard that his niece was already half dead at that time. Do you think she died because he knocked her? Update on B Omicron X0 VL. C Omicron MO. There's such a thing. That's why I wondered if his niece would seek revenge on Gu Day. The two of them chatted for a while before suddenly getting up and leaving. Gu Dahut stood where he was, deep in thought. On the other hand, Madame Chang hurriedly walked around to look at the two people who were talking. Unfortunately, she could only see the backs of the two men. They were wearing the clothes of ordinary villagers. She did not know who they were. When she returned, she saw Gu Dahut's eyes shining. He pulled her back to the room and whispered, I have an idea. Do you want to hear it? What is it? Second sister-in-law has harmed eldest sister-in-law. Isn't there a retribution now? Then second brother has harmed Yundong. Shouldn't he pay the price too? Madame Chang was stunned. Gu Dahut cackled. Second brother wanted Yundong's life. Of course, he could not take second brother's life, but second brother's silver. The couple lowered their heads and began to discuss in detail. On the other side, Ah Go and Ah Zhu, who had been hiding, covered their mouths and laughed softly. It's about time. Let's go back today. Sure thing. The two of them left Gu village silently. Because of the Gu village was the combination of two villages, the other village had few people and was poor. After they returned from the wilderness, some houses could not be lived in, so some people moved to the empty houses in Gu village. Therefore, there were always strangers coming in and out of this place, so the two of them were not so conspicuous. The two of them returned to Jiangyu County and entered the inn. In the end, they only saw Ah Mao waiting for them alone. Ah Mao and Ah Shu woke up early to look at the houses in the county city. After all, they could not leave for the time being, and it was inconvenient to stay in the inn all the time. After looking around, they all moved over, leaving only Ah Mao here to bring them to the place. The new courtyard was a little remote. They wouldn't be staying there for long anyway. Ah Go was a little excited when he went in. After sitting down, he could not wait to tell them what had happened in Gu village. That Jia Maisie really thought that she was possessed by a ghost. She was so frightened that her face turned pale. I'm dying of laughter. Actually, Ah Go had indeed knocked her out and moved her to the river with Ah Zhu. They originally wanted to move her to the place where Madame Yang had fallen into the water. There were large rocks there that could block people, and the same place looked more realistic. However, there was someone there. After Ah Go and Ah Zhu discussed, they found another place. At that time, Jia Maisie was tied to a rope, and the other end of the rope was pulled by Ah Zhu, who hid in a tree. Chapter 337. It must be Gu Yundong ago went into the water and stuck his head out. He grabbed Madame Jia's feet and held them in place. From afar, it was like Madame Jia was standing facing the river, her body leaning forward as if she was about to fall. However, they could not see Ah Go in the water. When they called out to Madame Jia, Ah Go untied the rope on her body and Madame Jia fell into the river. In order not to kill anyone, Go even put her head aside. Then, he swam to the other side and immediately changed his clothes when he got ashore. Fortunately, the weather was gradually getting warmer. Although it was still a little cold, Ah Go felt fearless. Even so, Gu Yundong still made him drink a large bowl of ginger tea to get rid of the cold. Update on B Omicron X0 VL. C Omicron M. Gu Dahu and his wife should have fallen for it too. Speaking of this, everyone could not help but feel excited. Ah Mao said, we should go to Gu village tomorrow. The next day, Ah Shu went to Gu village with the excuse of settling down. They pretended to be dissatisfied with other places and had no choice but to run back to Gu village. On the other hand, Gu Gang became even more smug and arrogant. Ah Shu said that he wanted to walk around the village first. When Gu Gang saw that there was a chance, he immediately brought him along. They walked to the entrance of old Gus' house. Then, they heard a commotion coming from inside. Father, there was a thief in our house. I don't have any money left in my room. The smile on Gu Gang's face suddenly fell, and he gritted his teeth in anger. Ah Shu looked inside curiously. Gu Da's loud shout had called the whole family over. When Madame Zhao heard that her house had been robbed, she immediately turned around and returned to her room. She looked at her money bag and heaved a sigh of relief. However, her expression immediately turned ugly. She came out and asked him, "You saved money. How much did you save? Was it your wife who urged you?" "Mother, why are you still talking about this at a time like this? Our house has been robbed." "Madame Zhao, robbed? Then why didn't I lose anything in my room?" "I didn't lose anything in my room either. Even the copper coin that mother gave our Bao yesterday is on the table." "It's still there," Madame Chang added. Gu Dai was stunned. What did she mean? Was he the only one who lost money in his room? Gu Dahu suddenly seemed to have thought of something and exclaimed, "Second brother, don't tell me it was also taken by a ghost. It even specially took your silver." "What did you say?" Gu Dai glared at him fiercely. Gu Dahu quickly took a step back. Why is second brother so angry? Could it be that second brother has forgotten that he snatched Yundong's money on the way to escape? "Look, she came back to take revenge on you." Otherwise, while second sister-in-law is still recuperating in her room, who would dare to go in and steal? When everyone heard this, their expressions instantly changed. It would have been fine if Jia Maisie had encountered such a strange thing alone, but now, even Gu Dai had encountered it. Well, Gu Dai felt as if his throat was choked and he could not say a word. Ah Shu, who was outside the door, clicked his tongue. A trace of embarrassment flashed across Gu Gang's face. They're all talking nonsense. There's something wrong with the brains of everyone in old Gus family. Ah Shu didn't say anything and turned around to go back. When they returned to Gu Gang's house, Gu Gang started to talk about the price again, but Ah Shu did not say a word. The central room was silent for a moment. On the other hand, Mao sauntered out again. When no one was around, he walked to the kitchen. Seeing that MDM Shen was alone, he quickly went in and said, "Miss Shen, my lady asked me to tell you something." Chapter 338, Something happened to old Gu again. MDM Shen looked out. Madame Wang had gone to the toilet and was not back yet. She took a step forward and asked, "What is it?" Ah Mao said, "My lady said that there are many ways to take revenge. If this path doesn't work, well, find another one. However, it's not worth it to sacrifice yourself for revenge." When Madame Shen heard this, she was stunned. Did that Miss Gu guess something? She pursed her lips and looked up to say something, but Ah Mao had already left. Update on B Omicron X0 VL. C Omicron MDM Shen secretly pinched her fingers. Another way. Of course she knew there were other ways, but she didn't want to wait any longer. She would not throw herself in. Why are you standing at the door? Did you do something wrong? Did you secretly eat something? Ha! Madame Wang's voice suddenly sounded in her ears. Madame Shen was pushed by her and instantly lowered her eyes to hide the disgust in the corners of her eyes. She did not say a word. However, Madame Wang refused to give up. Why are you acting like this again? Alright, there's a piece of meat missing. You must have eaten it secretly. I knew that you're not a good person. I was only gone for a while. Your hands and feet are dirty, right? I was wondering why you spent so much money when you went to the county city to buy things yesterday. Were you the one who kept some of the money? Her cursing continued. Gu Gang finally couldn't help but walk over and slap her. Can you stop? The guests have been scared away. Do you think everyone is as petty and stingy as you? Madame Wang screamed, "You hit me again." She pounced on him and scratched him with her nails. MDM Shen silently retreated to a corner and watched them fight to the death. On the other side, Shu had also returned. However, he told Gu Gang that he had to consider it carefully and would come back another day. The next day, Ah Go and Ah Zhu came over. Then, something happened to old Gus family again. It was said that when Madame Jia came out of the outhouse in the morning, she saw the youngest son of the third branch take out a stone from Gu Dahu and his wife's room and plan to throw it away. Then, she recognized that it was the stone that she had dug out from the ground and thrown away. Jia Maisie exploded on the spot. She snatched the stone and beat the child until he almost vomited blood. Hence, the two branches started fighting again. Madame Jia insisted that it was Gu Dahu and his wife who had smashed her head, not Madame Yang's ghost at all. Of course, Gu Dahu and his wife did not admit it. They felt that Madame Jia was deliberately slandering them because the second branch had lost money and wanted to extort a sum from them. Old Gu and Madame Zhao were in a terrible fix. Not to mention stopping the fight, they were even injured. The villagers were all watching the commotion. Only then did they realize that Madame Chang, who looked soft and weak, actually had extraordinary combat strength. She pressed Madame Jia down and beat her up until she cried like a ghost. On the third day, Ah Mao and Ah Shu came again, so something happened to old Gus family again. The two branches of old Gus family wanted to split up, but old Gu refused. Madame Zhao said that they wanted to follow third brother. This was because she knew that her second son and wife were lazy and greedy. Moreover, she had sold Gu Xiener previously. Madame Jia must have a grudge against them. Gu Dai did not want to take care of this couple either, so he agreed readily. However, the condition was that they had to share more of the family assets as compensation for Gu Xiener. Madame Zhao said that she did not have money. When no one was paying attention, Gu Feier secretly ran to the third branch's room to search for silver. He actually found 8 taels of silver. The Gu family was stunned, and Madame Zhao was even more dumbfounded. She had only saved 15 taels of silver for so many years. It was true that Madame Jia could not defeat her, but Madame Chang had to protect her daughter, so she was at a disadvantage. Unexpectedly, Madame Jia took the opportunity to tear off her clothes and expose most of her body in public. Who were the people in the brothel? They were all despicable men. Madame Chang was stunned and her mind went blank. In the end, it was her daughter who escorted her back. After Madame Chang returned, there was something wrong with her and she was in a daze. The doctor said that her brain had been hurt and was afraid that she would be like this in the future. However, Madame Zhao even said that she was embarrassing and wanted Gu Dahu to divorce Madame Chang. Gu Dahu was so angry that his entire body was trembling. He pushed Madame Zhao and almost made her fall. He rushed into the kitchen, grabbed a knife, and ran to the second branch's room. Madame Jia was trembling in fear. Gu Dai naturally went to stop her, and the knife slashed his wrist. The tendons in Gu Da's hand were broken, and his right hand was completely crippled. However, Gu Dahu did not give up. He steeled his heart and cut off the tendons in Gu Da's left hand. Old Gu's house was covered in blood. When old Gu and Madame Zhao rushed in, they saw Gu Dai lying in a pool of blood with a scream. Madame Jia was knocking Gu Dai away. Then, she picked up the knife that he had dropped on the ground and slashed his leg. Old Gu collapsed to the ground. The last thought in his mind was, if I had known this would happen, I wouldn't have sharpened the knife yesterday. Chapter 340. The godlike Gu Yundong. The villagers were shocked by such a huge incident. Madame Chang went crazy. Gu Da's hands were crippled and Gu Dahu broke his leg. Madame Zhao wanted to sink Madame Jia into the pond. When Gu Gang heard this, he almost fainted. By the time he arrived at the Gu residence, the entire courtyard was filled with tragic cries. The villagers hired 2 doctors, but their medical skills were not very good. They could only stop the bleeding and save their lives. As for curing them, that would be too difficult for the doctors. Gu Gang went to look for old Gu. The latter sat weakly in Gu Dahu's room with his back hunched. It was as if a lot of white hair had grown out of his head in an instant. His vitality had been sucked out of him, as if he had aged many years. Madame Zhao was in Gu Da's room. She got someone to grab Madame Jia and shouted at the top of her lungs, "Get rid of her and sink her into the pond." It was all this scourge's fault. All her fault. If it weren't for her, Madame Chang wouldn't have gone crazy, and third son wouldn't have been so angry that he cut off second brother's tendons. In the end, Madame Jia even cut off third brother's legs. Their 2 strong laborers, her 2 sons, were ruined. Destroyed. You're a jinx. Since you married into our family has never lived a good life. Well, sink her into the pond. Her screams could be heard clearly by everyone outside, including old Gu and Gu Gang. Update on B Omicron X0 VL. C Omicron M. Gu Gang frowned and asked him, "What do you think?" Old Gu wiped his face and looked at his third son on the bed, then at Madame Chang, who was sitting at the head of the bed in a daze. In the end, he thought of his second son who was also lying down and sighed heavily. Karma. It's all karma. As he spoke, he got up and bent down to go to the second branch's room. He said to Madame Zhao, whose eyes were still fierce, "Let second daughter-in-law stay." Madame Zhao turned to look at him in disbelief. Old Gu said, "Second brother is already like this. Someone has to take care of him. I can take care of him. What about third son?" Madame Zhao opened her mouth. Thinking of Madame Chang's appearance, she probably could not rely on her. She could only do it herself. Old Gu continued, "Besides, if you sink her into the pond, who will do all the work in our family? Or are you going to arrange another wife for second brother? But our family spent most of our money on the treatment just now. Besides, look at second son. No one is willing to marry him again." "But," Old Gu said in a low voice, "at most, you can just torture her in the future. Let this matter go. Don't make a fuss. Our family is already like this, what are you still making a fuss for? Let's not talk about anything else. For the sake of your eldest grandson, you can't sink her into the pond. Otherwise, what if your eldest grandson wants to get married in the future?" After Madame Zhao heard this, she looked at Madame Jia with a vicious gaze. Madame Jia was also afraid now. At that time, she was just hot-headed. She did not expect things to develop to this extent. Now, as long as they did not let her sink into the pond, she would do anything. Now that things had come to this, old Gus' words made sense. In addition, his eldest grandson was still pleading on the side. Madame Zhao could only give in. However, Madame Jia's life would be difficult in the future. Therefore, old Gus' family has suffered heavy losses this time. When Ah Go and the others reported the situation to Gu Yundong, they were extremely excited. Miss Gus' foresight was godlike. She was too smart. Look at how she had tormented old Gus' family. Gu Yundong knew that old Gus' family would not have a good ending. After all, she knew the weaknesses of that family too well. They were all selfish. What she cared more about now was, what about Miss Shen? Chapter 341, You Adulterous Couple. At the mention of the Shen family, Shu and Mao looked at each other. Of course, they already knew how Madame Shen planned to deal with Gu Gang. Although they felt that it was not worth it, there was nothing they could do since Madame Shen insisted on doing so. Shu said, "Miss Shen asked me to help her tomorrow. She should be preparing to reel in the net." Gu Yundong nodded. "Go there early tomorrow." The next day, Shu went to Gu village again. Recently, Gu Gang had been very frustrated. Gu village was not peaceful because so many things had happened to old Gus' family. Shu, whom he had always thought could extort more money from, always said that he would consider whether or not to settle down here. Every time he thought there was hope, something would happen to old Gus' family. Then Shu would go back. This dragged on day after day. Therefore, Gu Gang really hated old Gus' family to the core. He was considering whether he should chase this useless family out of Gu village. However, he had lost his patience with Shu. This time, when he heard that Shu was coming, he was also disinterested. It was only when Shu's cousin came over and said that Shu wanted to see the homestead that he suddenly came back to his senses. Had this guy made up his mind? Gu Gang immediately tidied himself up and left. Shu was standing not far from his distant cousin's house. He pointed at a place and said that he wanted to buy 1 acre. Gu Gang still stated the previous price, and there was no room for negotiation. Although Shu was unhappy, he still agreed. Unexpectedly, Gu Gang pushed his luck and asked for 5 taels of silver as he had to bribe the officials. When Shu heard this, he exploded and started arguing with him on the spot. He said that Gu Gang was a blood-sucking bug, that he was black-hearted, and his words were very intense. It provoked Gu Gang so much that he almost fainted. He pointed at Shu and told him to get lost. He didn't have to come again. Then, he went home angrily. There was no one at home. Gu Gang was so angry that his throat was smoking. He wanted to go to the kitchen to drink water. Unexpectedly, he heard strange rustling sounds. Among them was his concubine Madame Shen's. There was something wrong with that sound. Gu Gang followed the sound and saw that the door to his room was ajar. He could hear laughter coming from inside. He only heard a few words before his anger surged. He suddenly pushed open the door. What greeted his eyes were two people in disheveled clothes hugging each other. One of them was Gu Wanbao, his good grandson. The other was Madame Shen, his beloved concubine. What a match made in heaven. Gu Gang pointed at them with a trembling finger. You adulterous couple, you actually did such a thing, you did such a thing. Slowly, even his body began to tremble. He turned around to look for something, as if he wanted to beat them to death. Seeing that there was a wooden stick beside the door frame, Gu Gang took it. Madame Shen screamed in fear and hurriedly hid behind Gu Wanbao. She said pitifully and dependently, "What should I do? Wanbao, save me. Hell, kill me. What should I do? I'm so scared." Initially, Gu Wanbao was still a little timid. However, he had been quarreling with Gu Gang recently, so his courage slowly grew. Coupled with Madame Shen's stimulation, he immediately puffed out his chest and stood in front of her. "Who are you calling an adulterous couple? You're clearly the one who's so old and still doesn't know shame. I was the one who saved her in the first place, and I was the one who wanted to marry her. If you hadn't ruined her, we would have been a perfect couple. You old man, you already have my grandmother, yet you still fancy a young lady. She's young enough to be your granddaughter." Chapter 342, Escaped. You. Gu Gang raised his hand that was holding the wooden stick high, but he could not smash it no matter what. He felt that his hand was out of control, and a bad feeling welled up in his heart. Gradually, his pupils enlarged, and Gu Gang made a difficult hee-hee sound. He walked towards Gu Wanbao step by step, his eyes bloodshot as if he wanted to say something. However, in Gu Wanbao's eyes, it was obvious that he wanted to kill him. However, Madame Shen saw that something was wrong before him. She tugged at Gu Wanbao's sleeve. "Is he going to beat us to death? Let's run." Gu Wanbao pulled him away. Gu Gang was a little anxious. He moved his other hand and seemed to be able to control it. He immediately grabbed Gu Wanbao, who was walking past him. Gu Wanbao's expression changed. In his panic, he grabbed the scissors in the embroidered basket and stabbed them at him. Bright red blood spurted out, dyeing Gu Wanbao's hands and his clothes red. Gu Gang lowered his head in disbelief and looked at the scissors stuck in his chest. Gu Wanbao was also shocked. He lowered his head and looked at his hands. He had killed someone. He killed his own grandfather. Gu Wanbao suddenly took 2 steps back. He looked at Madame Shen, who also looked at him with wide eyes. You have to pay with your life for killing someone," she said with difficulty. Gu Wanbao's face turned pale. He shook his head. "No, I didn't do it on purpose. I don't want to pay with my life. I don't want to die. I don't want." He turned around and ran out in a panic. Madame Shen was still standing on the spot. She looked at Gu Gang, who was panting heavily on the ground, and suddenly laughed. Mouse had appeared at the door and waved at her. "Let's go." Madame Shen cleaned up the traces on the bed and followed Mao over the wall, temporarily leaving the Gu residence. At this moment, Gu Wanbao did not expect to bump into Shu and his cousin the moment he ran out of the door. Shu saw the blood on Gu Wanbao's hand at a glance, and so did his cousin. They both looked at him in shock. Gu Wanbao shook his head violently. I didn't. As he spoke, he ran away quickly and disappeared in an instant. Before Ah Shu could say anything, his cousin shouted, "Oh no, something must have happened." She ran into the house first and searched around. In the end, she found the person lying on the ground in Gu Gang's main room, covered in blood. Screams instantly resounded throughout the entire Gu family. Not long after, people arrived one after another. MDM Shen also came in with a basket. When she saw that her house was surrounded by people, she asked in surprise, "What's wrong? Why are they all gathered at our door?" When someone saw her coming over, he immediately said, "Oh, you're back. Something happened at your house. Your man was stabbed by his grandson. Blood is everywhere." What? MDM Shen's basket fell to the ground and she ran in without saying anything. Gu Gang's bed was filled with people. Among them, Madame Wang cried the most sadly. Madame Yu, on the other hand, muttered to herself. She looked at Ah Shu's cousin one moment and shouted the next, "Impossible. My Wanbao didn't do it. He didn't do it." The cousin took 2 steps back. I'm not the only one who saw it. Ah Shu saw it too. His hands were covered in blood when he ran out. He was in a panic. I think we weren't the only ones who saw him when he ran away. There were others on the way. Why don't you ask? I don't believe it. I don't believe anyone until Wanbao is found. Chapter 343, A Stroke, Then Go and Find Him. Madame Yu suddenly came back to her senses. Yes, I'll go look for my Wanbao. I'll get him back. After she ran out, MDM Shen took a few steps forward and asked the doctor, "How's our master?" Fortunately, his vitals weren't stabbed. He just lost a lot of blood. However, he suffered a huge shock and fell ill. He had a stroke. He has to be taken good care of in the future. The doctor shook his head and sighed. A stroke. Everyone was stunned. Madame Wang stopped crying. She lowered her head and looked at Gu Gang, who could not even speak. She was a little stunned. How could this be? How could he have a stroke? What would they do in the future? When the villagers heard this news, they were inexplicably happy. Although Gu Gang was the chief of Gu village, while most chiefs were doing it for the benefit of the family, only Gu Gang was focused on his family's money and even sucked blood from his clansmen, which had long caused everyone to be dissatisfied. Unfortunately, the position of the patriarch was not so easy to shake. At that time, most of the elders were on Gu Gang's side. After all, there were benefits to be gained. Fortunately, when they fled, a few elders did not survive. Gu Gang's influence weakened immediately, and after he returned, he gradually lost his power in Gu village. Therefore, even Gu Gang's appearance did not work when old Gus's family was in trouble. Now that he was paralyzed, it was simply a joyous occasion. The news spread quickly. Not long after, many people came to their house one after another. Among them was a middle-aged man who had gradually gained prestige in the village. This person was ambitious. He was from the neighboring village. When they escaped from the famine, most of the people in his village were mobilized together. This person was the leader. After returning, the 2 villages merged. He knew that the chief of Gu village was not a good person and had always wanted to pull him down. The villagers from his previous village all supported him. As for the people of Gu village, they were like a pot of loose sand now, without any cohesion. With the excuse that Gu Gang was not qualified to be the chief of Gu village, he told the town about the matter and then reported it to the county. After that, the head of Gu village changed hands. In just one day, so fast that Gu Gang's family did not even have time to react. Their family had gone from the high and mighty village chief's family to one that no one liked. When the new village chief heard about Gu Gang's case, he reported the suspect, Gu Wanbao, to the police. The police was also searching for Gu Wanbao. Madame Yu went out to look for her son for a day, but she couldn't find him. When she returned, she realized that the sky had changed. The entire Gu family was filled with a gloomy atmosphere. Only Shen slept soundly. Gu Yundong was quite satisfied with this result. As long as Shen felt that it was fine, she would naturally be fine. About 10 days had passed since the start of her plans for Gu village. The Gu family was finished, and so was Gu Gang. Gu Yundong thought that it was time to go back and meet her younger siblings. She was already starting to miss them. Her mother was playing with the puzzle over and over again, almost to the point of erasing the patterns on the puzzle. However, before leaving, she still asked Bien Yuanji, "We will be leaving here in 2 days. Is there anywhere you want to go?" She thought that after leaving this time, they might not have a chance to come back again. She asked him if there was anywhere he wanted to go and would bring him there before they left. Bien Yuanji was stunned. He lowered his head and replied after a while, "Yes." Chapter 344, Meeting Madame Hu again. Bien Yuanji wanted to take a look at his home. Ever since he came back from the desert, he stayed in the Ding family for a few days before being sent to the Gu family. Until now, he had never returned to the warm home where his parents and sister used to live. Gu Yundong immediately agreed. She also wanted to take a look. The Bien family was a little far away. After leaving the county city, they had to pass by Gu village and the Ding family's Shangbei village. After passing another village, they arrived at his house. Her eldest uncle Bien Han's parents had passed away a few years ago. His family had never had many children. Bien Yuanzi's only close relative was Bien Han's sister, who had long been married off. Unfortunately, he did not return after escaping. Guoxia village was not big and was poorer than Gu village and Shangbei village. After the disaster, it was even poorer and there were not many people left in the village. When they saw Gu Yundong and the rest, they looked over curiously. It was only when they saw them going to the Bien family that they suddenly remembered. Wasn't he the child from the Bien family? The Bien family had long been in shambles. When they left previously, they had taken everything they could. Those that could not be taken away had probably been plundered long ago. However, looking at the familiar room and environment, Bien Yuanji was still very happy. After the joy, her heart ached. Her sister was gone and she would never come back. She did not know where her parents were or if they were still alive. Gu Yundong looked around and realized that there were some wood carvings in the corner. These were all made by her uncle. Eldest uncle used to be a carpenter. Unfortunately, he had only learned it for a short period of time, so he could only make some trinkets for a living. Gu Yundong took a piece of cloth from the carriage and laid it on the ground. She placed the small wooden carvings on it. Seeing this, Bien Yuanji also ran over to help. Now that he could eat and wear warm clothes, he felt much stronger. After packing the small wooden carvings, he carried them on his back. Unexpectedly, as soon as he stepped out of the door, he saw a few people surrounding him. A young-looking woman asked him, "Yuanji, is it you?" Bien Yuanji still remembered this person. She was the aunt next door. He immediately put down his things. "Aunt Li, it's me. I heard that you went to your grandpa's house. Why are you back?" The two villages were far apart, so Auntie Li really didn't know what kind of life he was living. Although she knew that his family and his grandfather's family did not have a good relationship, she did not expect it to be so bad. Bien Yuanji looked at Gu Yundong, then turned around and said, I'm not at my grandpa's house anymore. I'm out. Auntie Li, I'm leaving. I might not come back in the future. Aunt Li was stunned. She looked at him, then at Gu Yundong and MDM Yang. She did not ask further. She just sighed and said, no matter what, it's good to be alive. It's not easy to have a full meal these days. You're a good child. Take good care of yourself. Based on Bien Yuanzi's current attire, he seemed to be doing well. He should be living a good life. Bien Yuanji nodded at Aunt Li with a smile. He now had a cousin and his aunt, Shu and Kiki. He was very good. Picking up the cloth bag on the ground, Bien Yuanji walked towards the carriage. Unexpectedly, halfway there, he suddenly saw someone walking over. As soon as Bien Yuanji saw that person, he recalled a bad memory. He turned around and ran towards Gu Yundong, holding her hand nervously. Only then did Gu Yundong look up at Madame Hu was walking over. Madame Hu was also surprised. She looked at Bien Yuanji and was speechless for a long time. Chapter 345, A Little Familiar upped by Byoxen 0VL. C Omicron M. Madame Hu called out to him tentatively, Yuanji. She couldn't be blamed for not being sure. It was mainly because Bien Yuanji was too different from what she had seen before. Who would have thought that in just 10 days, this person would become a completely different person? It seemed that he had indeed lived a good life. Madame Hu felt a little jealous. When Ding Jincheng came back that day, she panicked when she didn't see Bien Yuanji. She thought that Ding Jincheng had really sold him after getting him back from old Gus family. Wasn't he just out of the tiger's den and into the wolf's den? Wouldn't Bien Mulan look for him in the middle of the night? At that time, Madame Hu cried and asked Ding Jincheng to bring him back. Unexpectedly, Ding Jincheng said, didn't you dislike him? Then wouldn't it be good if I sent him to a family who wanted to adopt him? Madame Hu almost went crazy with anger. I don't like him, but what can I do? What if his sister comes to me in the middle of the night to take my life? Mother, Mulan just doesn't want Yuanji to suffer. Think about it, did she only ask you to let us take him away from the old Gu family? Madame Hu actually didn't dare to recall the situation at that time. It was Father Ding who nodded and confirmed that Bien Mulan had indeed said that. However, Madame Hu was still afraid. Ding Jincheng advised her, that family is quite good and well off. Yuanji doesn't have to worry about food and clothing. It's much better than in our family. If Mulan finds out, not only will she not blame us, she will even thank us. Madame Hu was skeptical. Although it made sense, she still didn't dare to sleep that night. She waited all night with dark circles under her eyes and heaved a sigh of relief when she didn't see Bien Mulan and the black and white ghosts again. She fell onto the bed and slept for an entire day and night. When she woke up the next day, she heard that something had happened to old Gus family and that it was haunted. Jia Meizi had also been hit on the head and fell into the water, just like Madame Yang back then. At that time, she felt that Bien Mulan was taking revenge on old Gus family and was secretly happy. She secretly thought that the woman deserved it and started to laugh at her. However, something had been happening to old Gus family. In just 10 days, they had actually reached the point of killing each other and breaking their limbs. Madame Hu was a little afraid. She felt that Mulan seemed to be a little ruthless and especially vengeful. She was afraid that after Mulan finished dealing with old Gus family, she would remember what Madame Hu had done wrong and look for her again. Therefore, Madame Hu set up a memorial tablet for Bien Mulan at home and burned a lot of paper money. In the end, she still felt uneasy. She actually dreamed of Bien Mulan's family in the middle of the night. She shivered and came to the Bien family the next day. She wanted to clean the house for the Bien family so that Bien Milan could stay at her maternal home if she had nothing to do and wouldn't scare them again. He didn't expect to see Bien Yung here. Bien Yung still looked like he was living a good life. Madame Hu shifted her complicated gaze away from him and looked at Gu Yundong. Then, she was stunned. This woman looked a little familiar. Miss, have we met before? Gu Yundong did not like Madame Hu. Initially, she did not want to talk to her. Unexpectedly, Madame Hu remembered it herself. By the way, it's at Xingxing restaurant, right? You asked my Jincheng about something, right? Gu Yundong was a little surprised. He did not expect Madame Hu to have such a good memory at her age. Madame Hu was a little jealous. Her Jincheng knew such a rich family first, but she didn't expect Bien Yung to take advantage in the end. Gu Yundong nodded slightly and said to Bien Yung, let's go. Yeah. Madame Yang also held Bien Yuanzi's hand and said, don't be afraid. Dong Dong will protect you. Madame Hu was stunned. Why did this person's words sound? Chapter 346, That's Gu Dajiang's wife upped by Byoxen 0VL. See Omicron M. Madame Hu watched as the three of them got into the carriage, but her brows furrowed slightly. It was only when their carriage disappeared into the distance that she came back to her senses. She strode towards Auntie Li's house and asked her, hey, do you know who the person with Yung is? Auntie Li shook her head. How would I know? She didn't really want to bother with Madame Hu. Besides, she really didn't know. She had only said a few words to Yung. That girl looked very noble. How could a poor family like hers dare to look at the girl? Seeing that she could not find out anything, Madame Hu was a little angry. At this moment, she could not be bothered to go to the Bien house. She turned around and ran home. When she saw Ding Jincheng chopping firewood, she hurriedly pulled him over and asked him very seriously, tell me honestly, who exactly is the person who adopted Bien Yung? Ding Jincheng was taken aback, and his gaze drifted a little. Didn't I say it already? It's just a kind-hearted family who pitied Yung, don't lie to me. Madame Hu suddenly shook off his hand and said angrily, I met them all today. Not only did I meet Bien Yung, but I also met Gu Dajiang's wife. Yes, the woman who spoke like a child was Gu Dajiang's wife. Of course, she recognized Madame Yang. It was just that the Madame Yang she saw today was too different from before. Not only had she gained weight, but her face had also become better and her clothes were neat. She didn't dare to look at her anymore. It was only when she heard Madame Yang's words that she suddenly connected the two of them. However, Madame Hu could not believe it no matter what. Still, along the way, she was certain that it was Madame Yang. Who was the woman holding Bien Yuanzi's hand? Ding Jincheng saw that his mother had seen them, so he did not hide it anymore. He pursed his lips and said, that person is Yuanzi's cousin. Cousin? She's eldest uncle Gu Dajiang's daughter. Pest, Madame Hu's eyes widened. Gu Dajiang's daughter. Madame Yang's daughter. No wonder Madame Yang was also there. She frowned tightly. Gu Dajiang's daughter was back, and she looked rich. She returned to Jiangyu County, but she didn't show up. She didn't go back to Gu Village, but only asked you to bring Bien Yung out. Ding Jincheng nodded. Yes, she knew that Bien Yung wasn't doing well. The Gu family didn't like him, so she took him away. She doesn't live in Jiangyu County. Ding Jincheng still nodded. Madame Hu lowered her head and thought for a moment. Suddenly, she clapped her hands and smiled. Then, she turned around and left. A broad premonition flashed across Ding Jincheng's mind. He suddenly pulled her back. Mother, where are you going? Where am I going? Ha 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 ha, I'll go to old Gus' house. Madam Hu gloated. They extorted a tael of silver from me and tortured me. Do you see that? Old Gus' eldest granddaughter is so promising now. She clearly came back, but she doesn't even enter the house. Ha ha ha, isn't that hilarious? Mother, hey, don't stop me. If old Gu finds out, he'll definitely regret it and die. I have to tell them that their rich granddaughter came back and took Bien Yung away without even looking at them. Ha ha ha. I want to laugh when I think of old Gus' face when he hears that. Madam Hu was extremely excited. She just wanted to see the world in chaos. She struggled free from Ding Jincheng and wanted to leave. Otherwise, we won't have a good life either. He had been thinking a lot these past few days. The more he thought about it, the more he felt that this was the case. He even suspected that his parents' encounter with a ghost had something to do with her. Madam Hu was stunned when she heard this. However, when Ding Jincheng said that, his tone was scary, making one's hair stand on end. She glared at him. Then I won't go. Don't go. Madam Hu wanted to laugh at old Gus' family, but when she thought of the miserable state of old Gus' family, she decided to forget it. What if this woman realized that they were bad to Bien Mulan and Bien Yung? Gu Yundong did not know that Madam Hu had almost gone to Gu village to announce her return, but it did not matter even if she did. The Gu family was already in such a state. So what if they knew that she was the one who did it? Now, Madam Shen would let her have a taste of losing her son. Shen was overjoyed and her smile became brighter. Back then, when Gu Gang wanted to take me in as his concubine, I lied and said that I had lost my household registration certificate. In fact, I had been hiding it all along. When Gu Gang wanted to go to the government office to get me a new one, I thought of a way to delay it until now. Although I'm his concubine on the surface, I'm still a good citizen. Even if I escape, they can't do anything to me. Although the refugees had been back to their hometown for some time, because the two villages had merged, many household registrations were still unclear, so she was not an exception. Gu Yundong admired her. Then where do you plan to go? I'll just go home. Shen sighed faintly. I remember you saying that your home is in a town on the other side of Feng County, right? Feng County is not close to here. It could even be said that it was far away. After leaving Jiangyu County, they had to pass through the Yongning Prefecture. Why don't you wait for another day? We'll give you a ride. We have to pass by anyway. Chapter 349, A Favor You. TED by BXN0VL. C Omicron MMDM Shen was stunned for a moment before she lowered her eyes and thought about it. To be honest, she was indeed a little worried about traveling alone. Originally, she had planned to look for a caravan after bidding farewell to Gu Yundong and see if she could hitch a ride. It would be great if she could be with Gu Yundong. Hence, she nodded and agreed. Thank you. Then I'll take you to your room to rest. We'll leave early tomorrow morning. Yeah. Gu Yundong brought her to the room next door. That room was empty and just needed to be tidied up. When Shen was working, Gu Yundong went out. Unexpectedly, as soon as she walked out of the courtyard, she saw Ah Mao and the other three pushing each other towards her. Gu Yundong stopped in her tracks and glanced at them. The four of them immediately straightened their backs. However, their eyes did not stop rolling for a moment. Anyone could tell that they wanted to say something but hesitated. Gu Yundong entered the central room and said, "Do you have anything to say to me?" The four of them quickly walked in and looked at each other. After a while, Mao, who was the boss, said, Miss, we want to beg me for something." "Beg me for something?" Gu Yundong was surprised. Why did it sound so serious? She couldn't help but sit up straight. "Go ahead." "Well, miss, can you bring us back to the Xuanhe prefecture?" Gu Yundong could not help but be stunned. She blurted out, "Brother Xiao didn't say that he wanted to take you away." Brother Xiao. Xiao Qingyuan, who had just stepped through the door, suddenly stopped in his tracks. This was the first time he had heard her call him Brother Xiao. Why did it sound so nice? Xiao Qingyuan couldn't help but smile. He tried his best not to laugh out loud. He cleared his throat and strode into the central room. Gu Yundong turned her head and saw him. She looked at the spring breeze on his face in confusion. What happened? Why was he so happy? Xiao Qingyuan silently walked to a chair at the side and sat down. He picked up his teacup and drank his tea quietly. Continued chatting. He pretended that he didn't exist. She could continue to call him Brother Xiao. Gu Yundong felt that there was something strange about him. They were talking about him and he was present. How could they continue chatting? However, Mao could still continue. He said, "Young Master Xiao said that it's up to you whether we stay or leave." Xiao Qingyuan nodded slightly. Gu Yundong was speechless. "Didn't you bring them from the prefectural city?" He had already ordered them around for so many days. Had he not decided if he wanted to take them away? Gu Yundong could not help but rub her forehead. He pointed outside and said, "Go pack your things. Buy everything you need." The children of old Gus family's two branches, who had been slacking off whenever they could, had no choice but to work now. The younger ones had to go to pick pig grass and firewood. Every day, they would come back and look at their swollen fingers with teary eyes. It was only then that they realized what kind of life Gu Yundong and her siblings had led in the past. There was regret and hatred. Why didn't Gu Yundong and her siblings come back? If they were here, they would be the ones doing the work. Jia Maisie was so tired that she couldn't even straighten her back every day. In the past, she was the laziest and most greedy sister-in-law, but now, she couldn't sleep or eat her fill every day. In the day, she had to wash clothes, cook, and go to the fields. In the middle of the night, she had to take care of Gu Dai. Sometimes, when Gu Da's temper flared up, he would hit her. He blamed her for selling the third branch's child and implicating him, causing him to become a cripple. Jia Maisie didn't dare to retort. She had gone back to her maternal family, but what did they say? "Maisie, your reputation is ruined now. Everyone in our village knows that you wanted to harm your sister-in-law and even cut off your third uncle's leg. Now, it has already implicated your niece's marriage. If you're divorced, our Jia family will treat it as if we don't have a daughter like you." Chapter 351, The Gu Family's Granddaughter Returned You. TED by BXN0VL. C. Omicron M. Jia Maisie could only continue to stay in old Gus' house. She was ordered around by Madame Zhao and scolded by Gu Dai. However, her children did not understand her and pushed all the blame to her. Madame Chang was still in a daze. She did not go out at all and rarely even left her room. Not only was she unable to take care of Gu Dahu, she even needed her daughter to take care of her. Madame Zhao was furious and deliberately starved her a few times. Madame Chang was so hungry that she couldn't take it anymore and came out, but she directly smashed the door of the main house to find food and almost fought with Madame Zhao. Madame Zhao almost fainted. She was also busy. Madame Chang could not take care of Gu Dahu, so she could only do it herself. There were many things to do at home. She was already so old, but she still had to do it herself. It was the same for Gu Chuanzong. He did not have to go to the fields previously. Before escaping, he had 4 sons. Even though Gu Dajiang worked as an accountant in the county and Gu Dai and Gu Dahu would occasionally slack off, he still had a diligent 4th son. After returning from the famine, he occasionally had to work in the fields, but he also had 2 sons. In order to have a good harvest, the 2 of them had to work. But now, the 2nd and 3rd branches did not have any strong laborers. Gu Fei was not young anymore, but he used to rely on the fact that he was the eldest grandson and was always pampered. Even if he was a child from the countryside, he still lived a pampered life. Now, he could not lift anything heavy. He could not stand such weather for an hour. The only person in old Gu's family who could work was Gu Chuanzong. Nowadays, he went out early and returned late every day. He was so tired that he went home and fell asleep. Initially, he thought that he would be able to enjoy life with so many sons. Now, it was the complete opposite. He had to support 2 families. Gu Chuanzong was very regretful now. If he had known earlier, he would have stopped 4th son from leaving the team to look for Gu Yundong and his mother. At least his youngest son would be filial to him. He sighed slowly and carried the hoe home. Unexpectedly, a familiar name suddenly sounded in her ear. Yes, Gu Dajiang's eldest daughter is very rich. Gu Chuanzong was stunned. Gu Dajiang. Eldest daughter. He looked up in confusion and turned to see Madame Hu chatting with someone under a tree not far away. He could not even lift his legs, but he still walked over numbly. Madame Hu's back was facing him, but her voice was not soft. That's Gu Yundong. I saw it with my own eyes. She's back with her silly mother. Do you know why we had to bring Bien Yuanji out? It was Gu Yundong who begged us. Now, that Bien Yuanji is going to enjoy life too. Someone at the side did not believe it. That eldest granddaughter of old Gu's family was very timid in the past. Why do you make it sound like they're 2 completely different people? Are you sure you didn't see wrongly? How could I be wrong? Madame Hu retorted excitedly. I even saw her bring Bien Yuanji to the Bien family that day and take away a lot of the things in the Bien family. She's changed. She married a rich man. Her clothes are flamboyant and she's wearing gold chains. There's a silver hairpin on her head, a jade bracelet on her wrist, and she's sitting in a carriage with 4 or 5 maidservants. Ha! Everyone was in an uproar. So rich. Madame Hu snorted. And Gu Dajiang's wife. TSK, there's a maidservant supporting her when she gets into the carriage. She's even fed. What does it matter if she's a fool? Anyway, there's someone to serve her, right? Chapter 352, Why Doesn't She Care About Me? You. TED by BXN0VL. C Omicron M. The more Madame Hu spoke, the more excited she became. Bien Yuanji has already put on new clothes. In just a few days, he's gained weight and his complexion has improved. After eating, a maidservant will wipe his mouth and make sure that his soup isn't too hot. He can buy whatever he wants. He can even throw away a stick of candied hawthorn just for fun. When she said this, even the children beside her came over and swallowed their saliva with sparkling eyes. Why would he throw it away? He can give it to me. Madame Hu glanced at the child who spoke. to you? When he was suffering here in the past, did you give him a grain of corn? Dream on. Everyone was extremely envious. If they had known that Bien Yuanji had such good fortune, they would have treated him better. One of the families in the crowd was stunned. When they thought of the bag of white rice that had suddenly appeared in their room a few days ago, their hearts pounded. They were the ones who took Bien Yuanji home for a meal when he was about to freeze to death. In that case, was he thanking them? However, old Gu, who was standing at the back of the crowd, became more and more shocked. His eyes lit up as he listened. His body, which had originally felt weak, suddenly erupted with a huge force. He pushed away the person in front of him and stood in front of Madame Hu in a few steps. She widened her eyes and asked, "Is what you said true? Is what you said true?" Madame Hu was so shocked that she almost fell off the standing stone. She barely managed to stabilize herself before she saw old Gus's weathered face clearly. She secretly pursed her lips and smiled. Of course it's true. Why would I lie to everyone? Then why didn't she come back? Why didn't she come home when she had money? Madame Hu laughed. Why do you think? Wasn't she afraid that your Gu family will cling on to her like blood-sucking insects? Old Gu, don't tell me you don't know what kind of life Gu Dajiang's family used to live. You bullied them in the past. Do you think they will come back and be filial to you? Do you think they're stupid? Let me tell you, she's smart. She secretly took Bien Yuanji away and didn't even look at you. But she's a member of old Gus's family. She's my granddaughter. How can she leave us alone when she's rich? Old Gu was so angry that he was panting. The veins on the back of his hand were bulging, as if he could not accept this fact. The Gu family had already become like this. If Gu Yundong was really rich, why would he need to work so hard? His second and third sons could also go to a good medical center to treat their illnesses. They could also live in a big house with people serving them. Madame Hu sneered. You really dare to think about it? Your granddaughter is already married. The rich man is her husband. Why should he care about you? What about Gu Dajiang? What about Gu Yunshu? My son and grandson. It would be unfilial of them to ignore me. Madame Hu smiled even more happily. I only saw Gu Dajiang's wife. As for Gu Dajiang and Gu Yunshu, I didn't see them. Don't tell me these two are gone. Think about it, if they were still alive, would Gu Yundong not bring them here? She even brought Madame Yang with her when she went out. I don't think there's anyone else in the family who can take care of her. When everyone heard this, they all thought that it made sense. Madame Yang was a fool. It would be so troublesome to bring her out. If Gu Dajiang was around, she would definitely leave her at home for him to take care of. If Gu Yunshu was around, Gu Yundong might as well bring him along instead of a fool. The daughter must have been worried without Madame Yang's close relatives by her side. You're tuning into the LoveLore Library YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.